He goes, what are you going to do? I said, oh, nothing. I'm leaving. I said, I can't go to prison. Look
so
at me.
Immediately you were like, I'm on the run.
Yeah. I mean, look at me, bro. I'm adorable. Can't go to prison.
Had you had any of the plastic surgery yet or anything?
No, I haven't been on the run yet.
Oh, shit. So you did that to change your appearance while you were on the run.
Of course. I mean, I know what you're thinking. It's hard to improve this. But
What's cooking, everybody? If you are on YouTube right now, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell button, hit that like button on the video, and as always, would love to hear from you down in the video comment section as well. To everyone who has been sharing the links to these episodes with friends, thank you so much for that. As I always say, word-of-mouth marketing is the best possible thing this show could get to grow, and so I really, really appreciate all of you who've been doing your part. Let's keep that rolling. To everyone who is listening on Apple or Spotify right now, thank you for checking out the show over there. If you haven't already, be sure to hit the follow button on either one of those platforms, and leave a 5-star review if you have a second. That's a huge help, and I look forward to seeing you guys again for future episodes. Now, I am joined in the bunker today by none other than Mr. Matt Cox, who is a man who really doesn't need an introduction. But if you don't know who Matt Cox is, he at one point was the most wanted con man in America and has lived a hell of a life. Obviously not always doing good stuff, but he's an unbelievable storyteller now, and he's funny as all fuck too. So I really want to give a shout out to my friend Danny Jones down at the Concrete Podcast, Concrete with a K. It's available on all platforms, for hooking this one up. He has like 10 different podcasts with Matt. They are incredibly entertaining, and you'll see why when you listen to this one. This guy is just, he can talk to a wall. It's amazing. I was in a trance. Like the whole time, I'm just like, oh my God. By the second hour, I mean, it was just story after story after story. They're funny, and they're also crazy. So, hope you guys enjoy. I know you will. That said, you know what it is. I'm Julian Dorey, and this is TRENDIFIER. Let's go! This is one of the great questions in our culture. Where is the nuance? Everyone understands this, but few seem to do it. If you don't like the status quo, start asking questions. Matt Cox, thank you for coming down here, brother.
Sure, no problem.
We've been talking for like 2 hours, so obviously this is like weird starting from the top like this. But I've seen your story around a bunch. I had a fan reach out maybe 3-4 months ago and say, yo, you should get Matt Cox on the show. And I was like, Matt Cox. Then I looked at the Wikipedia page and I'm like, oh, this guy. And the story, I mean, your life has been insane, man.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah.
Unfortunately, but you know what? Like, in a weird way, you end up taking winding roads, and if you take advantage of them in the right ways, obviously, you can end up in a place where you're doing the things you're passionate about. It seems like that's kind of where you're at with the writing and even with the podcast.
Yeah, that's where I'm at now, but it was, definitely a long road.
Long road to get there.
Yeah. And like I said, I mean, like I said earlier, you know, it's not like something happened to me. You know, it's like I brought all of it on myself. So it's not like I came down with cancer, and you know, it was, you know, like every bad thing that's ever happened to me is because I brought it on myself. You know?
I really like that approach, man. I mean, it's you even read like the description of your podcast. I think it's like, I committed all these crimes and I was guilty of every single one.
100% guilty.
People appreciate the upfront, and then you tell the story and it's like, oh shit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I always, like, guys will start talking about, like we've been talking about, like how unfair the justice system is or something. It's like, I can only bitch so much about it because, like, I was really guilty. So, you know, how much can I really complain? You know, so, but, you know, that's, but whatever. We'll get into it. So maybe we'll just start right from the top at the beginning a little bit. So, for people that aren't familiar with your story, if they haven't already pulled up Wikipedia at this point, you were the mortgage fraudster, pretty much, is how we would describe it. And when did you officially go down? Like 2006? Yeah, late 2006.
Okay.
Basically, first part 2007. Yeah.
So you were what, like 35, something like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
37, 38. I was like 37. 38. God, man, I don't remember. I was 37
Mid-30s, late 30s.
When I finally got arrested. Like, I'd been arrested a few times, and I'd been on probation a few times. But when I finally, like, I was on the run, and I finally got arrested, it was late 2006, and I was 37 years old.
So let's just figure out where it all started. When did you first, I mean, was it in college, before college? Like, what was the first soiree you had into, like, doing something illegal?
That was the first loan I ever did was a bank fraud. You know?
Really?
Yeah.
How so?
Well, like I graduated college and I ended up, after a few years, I ended up as a mortgage broker. You know, I had a girlfriend that was a mortgage broker and she said, you got to do this. So I ended up being a mortgage broker and and it was bad. You know, you've done finance and we even talked about this. Like you basically work for nothing. Well, as a mortgage broker, like there was no salary. Like you're going out, you're getting clients and you're
All
getting them a
commission.
loan.
Yeah.
Right. So how do I make money in the meantime? So I basically ran up my credit cards, stopped paying my car payment. I mean, I was like months behind on my bills, and I'm working on 3 or 4 loans. And my very first loan, I'm about to send it off, and the chick that I was doing the loan for had been 30 days late on her rent at one point. And so when my manager got the file, before you sent it to underwriting to get approved, she went through the file and she took one piece of paper out and set it to the side and went through everything else. And she goes, "This looks great." And I'm like, "Well, what's up with it?" She goes, "Well, I don't think you looked at this." She goes, your customer has a 30-day late. She was 30 days late in the last 12 months, let's say. And I was like, and that's a deal killer. It's over. She's not getting a loan. Like the bank's not lending you money if you're 30 days late.
Right.
You can't. Right. So she said, so, and I was like, oh my God. And she goes, I go, what do I do? And she went, well, what I would do is I would white it out. And she pulled out some white out. You remember the old one?
Yeah.
And she goes, I would white it out, wait for it to dry, make a copy, let me look at it. We'll put it in the file and send it off. And I was like, well.
So she told you to do it?
Yeah, she told me to do it. Yeah. And I went, well, and I said, well, what happens if they call? She goes, well, they're going to call. She goes, if they call at all, they'll just ask them if they filled it out. They're not going to say, hey, did she have any 30-day late? She goes, they don't need to. They have the document in front of them.
Holy shit.
And I went, what if they catch it, though? What if they do? And she goes, I said, that's fraud. I could go to jail. She goes, you're not going to go to jail. You might lose your job. She goes, but we'll just say that this is what they sent us. Like, she said, they just won't do it. She says, it won't go through underwriting. Maybe you get fired. And I was like, she goes, look, they're not going to catch it. She goes, there's a ton of documents here. They don't want to call on everything. They're not going to, even if they call, they're not going to catch it. She goes, look, nobody's looking for my truck. Cause I used to joke around I'm parking in the back cause they're looking for my car,
Yeah.
Like I was that broke. And she said, yeah, she said, nobody's looking for my car. And I went,
wow.
So I said, give me the whiteout. And I whited it out. I went and made a copy and put it in the thing. And I sweated for like 3-4 days. 4 days later, I got an approval. A few days after that, it closed. I got a check for like $3,500.
And you're in.
I'm good. The next guy that came in, that loan closed. The next one came in, the guy made like $60,000, let's say. I forget the amount, but like $62,000. But if he made like $69,000, he could get the loan.
So you changed it.
Of course, I changed the 2 to a 9. I changed a couple other numbers to make sure it worked out right.
Did it look good when you did that?
It looked perfect, bro. Like I have a degree in fine art, so
yeah,
that's why
that
Danny
helps.
always makes jokes. That's why people make jokes when they're like, well, this guy's dangerous. He has a degree in fine arts. I always say that when they're like, well, how did you figure out how to make that? And I was like, I have a degree in fine arts. like how did you? Like at some point, I start making birth certificates. So I can get Social Security to issue me Social Security numbers to children that don't exist, so I can create synthetic identity. So
I did read that. Yeah.
Right. I start doing all these things, and whenever somebody says, "How'd you figure that out?" I always go, "Bro, I have a degree in fine art." like I'm dangerous, So it looked perfect. I sent it in, went perfectly fine. Next guy comes in, something's off. I start just correcting every document, and I got to a point where I was like, listen, if you walked into my place with a pulse, you were getting a loan. I was going to get you a loan. Like, guys would come in. Listen, they'd come in, they'd hand me forged W-2s and stuff.
And this is what, like 2000, 2001, 2002?
Yeah, 2000, 2001. So, well, probably 1999 at first, later part of 1999. So then 2000. And, people would come in. I'd have customers come in and give me a fake, like, W-2. And I catch it right away. I'm making these fucking things. So I know.
Yeah, you knew.
Yeah. And I mean, I've had them to where
And what would you look for? Like when someone gave you that?
When you start making copies of copies, like the drum on a cheap a cheap printer, the drum, when you make a copy of a copy, any lines start to get squiggly.
Right.
Like straight lines start to bend. And the more you make it again, it bends again. Next thing you know, you got these wavy lines. So it's like, obviously, this person's
That one's easy for you to catch.
Yeah.
Very easy.
Or, sometimes they're not lined up correctly. Or I've had people use font, like the font's off. Like this is Arial. And you use like this is like Times Roman or something. Like this isn't even close. Then you completely change it. Or I'd pick up the phone and I'd go, so these are your W-2s. And they're like, yeah, those are my W-2s. And I go, and I'd pick up the phone and I'd call the phone number. And like some woman would answer, hello? I'd go, hey, is this AAA towing? And be like, oh, yes, AAA towing. And I'd be like, is this your mom? Bro, and I go, okay, thank you. And I hang up. I say, listen, bro.
You came to the right place.
Yeah, you bumped into the right guy. Like now I understand. But then again, what's so funny about that is then I would be like, they'd be like, man, bro, I don't want to get in trouble. Like, don't call anybody. No, you're getting a loan. Like the fees across the board just went up, but you're getting a loan.
No, I got you.
It's funny, that same guy, the AAA towing, I forget what the name of the company was, but he's like, well, I said, make sure your mom answers it correctly from now on. And I remember I called like 2 days later. I just randomly called saying, hello. And I was like, is Tom there? AAA towing. And I'd be like, listen, by the third time I called, I said, listen, we're just going to change the phone number. I'm just going to answer it myself. Like I have a bank. I have like 5 or 6 cell phones. I have, back when they had, you could get voicemail that was connected to a pager. So I got like 8 pagers.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Oh, no, well, you were a child. You weren't even probably born.
I was like 5.
Yeah. So, but you could get like a voicemail. People would call and leave a voicemail and they'd page you. They were pagers.
No shit.
Yeah. So so you could put any voice on there and they would, hey, so-and-so, we're currently assisting other callers right now. And then so it would beep in my drawer and I'd pick up and I'd call and check the voicemail and then I'd call back. Hi, this is so-and-so from whatever, whatever the business is. So, and then I start incorporating different corporations, or I'm getting tax ID numbers from different corporations and I'm registering the phone numbers in the business directory. And I'm getting, as time went, I got more and more creative. I mean, I got to a point where I started making like my own banks. Like I was making online banks. Just
like names, like making up names.
Yeah, like a Bank of Ybor or the Southern Exchange Bank of Clarksville.com. And,
Did you have a website for them?
Yeah, of course. I have a website. I've got my own color, front and back color bank statements. I've got cards. I mean, I've got everything. I got envelopes, everything. I had a CPA that, not a CPA, she was just a bookkeeper, but she would do 1040s for me. So if you had, let's say you were a plumber and you said you made $12,000 last year, and the guy would be like, yeah, but really I make this much money, and I'd say, okay, well, you have good credit. And so I'd go take his taxes and I'd say, I need this guy to make $120,000. Right now he's making 10 or 12 or 15. He's showing
How does
50.
she make that happen?
She changed the W-2s. I mean, I'm sorry, she changed the 1040s. She'd redo 2 years of 1040. She'd do an up-to-date, year-to-date profit and loss. And then I'd make sure the phone number was registered in the business directory, and then they'd accept it. Back then, they would accept that.
Did she have a degree in fine arts too?
No, she didn't, but she was a bookkeeper, and she used to do taxes.
Know what she's doing.
Yeah, she used to. What else would? Yeah, but it was nuts. So I mean, I was doing that for a while. But that's how it started. Sorry.
You make that first 35 though, that first 3,500.
Yeah.
You sweat it out for a few days, and then, like you said, you just started doing it on all of them after that. Was there like a recognition once that loan went through and you saw that money hit your account that you're like, oh, I want to do that again? Where you also said like, oh, we're going to go full legal? Or was there just full steam ahead, you see the money coming in, let's roll?
No, I mean, to me, not that there's a gray area. But what I was doing was illegal. So what I did was that's all I was doing. I would just alter, like you come in and I take your documents and you're missing one thing. I make that correction. That was like, it's a gray area. It's not, I'm still committing fraud. You shouldn't have got that loan. And so what people don't realize is that if you get $150,000 loan that you really didn't qualify for. Well, I just got hit with $150,000 in fraud I just committed. Now you might say, well, you didn't get $150,000. Doesn't matter. I caused the bank to lend $150,000 on a house that they would not have lent. So now I just committed $150,000 mortgage fraud.
And you also get to close it, so you make the money. So
right, I make a commission.
Yeah,
and my commissions are they're large. If you had gone to Bank of America and been charged $1,500, I'm charging probably $3,000 to $4,000, maybe $5,000 for the same loan. And you would have gone to Bank of America and you would have gotten an interest rate of whatever, let's say 6%. I'm charging you 7.5%, because I'm getting points on the back of the loan. Yield spread.
And you're also doing them a favor. They know it. So,
right. They know it. If I was lucky, they'd already been turned down by a couple people. Those were the people you really, really took advantage of because they're not delusional into thinking that they have a choice. They've been turned down twice. So know you're in a bad spot. I always hated the guys that you're like, bro, your credit sucks. You don't claim taxes. Your whole situation is fucked. Don't sit here and act like you can argue with me because I'm charging you a $4,500 broker fee.
Right.
That, by the way, that the seller's paying. Well, yeah, but that's a part of my loan. Well, go to Bank of America. Go to Bank of America with your taxes that say you made $15,000 and you want to buy a $300,000 house with the money that you have that you don't even have in the bank yet.
5 years later, they might have been able to do that.
Yeah.
Maybe,
yeah,
but not then. Not then.
No, not then.
Not early on. I mean, it's just like you think about where mortgages are now. I mean, the times where we would even do that for a client and take care of putting that through Bank of America because I worked at Merrill. It's like there are so many moving parts to that, and it can be very annoying. And God, you roll your eyes every time, but it's like, fuck, I get why. Because you went from the wild, wild west to this.
Yeah. 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 I was going to say, it's funny, all the procedures that they put into place now. Talked to a mortgage broker the other day that was like, yeah, you can't do this anymore because of this. And I immediately looked at him and I was just like, yeah, you can. Here's how I do it. And I went through, I go, boom, 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 boom. It's an extra step, but because of that extra step, now they 100% believe it. And the guy's like, holy shit. And he was like, I never even thought that. Right. That's the problem. That's the whole thing. That's why you're a normal broker and you'll never have to go to jail. Good for you. That's that. Like you're saying, no, you can't do that. Right. You can't. You used to be able to do it. This is how you can do it now. And thank God you're not even in the ballpark of being able to figure it out, because the truth is you could end up in jail.
Yeah.
And which is what happened. So I continued on doing that. And
the growth of what happened with you.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Well, I mean, it just kept getting worse and worse. Then I ended up opening my own place.
And what year are we talking about here?
I would say I opened my own place in 2000, like within a year. So,
now, did you have a wife and son at the time?
I was married and I just had a child. Like we got married, most of the people in my family get married because, someone got pregnant. So, we're Catholic. So they get pregnant and you're like, oh, I guess we're getting married. So I got married to I can't even say it. I talk to her all the time. Like I talk to my ex-wife all the time. She'll kill me.
That's good, at least.
Oh yeah. No, we're good friends. Like she came to see me the whole time I was in prison.
Really?
Yeah. And I know her husband.
And you had been divorced and everything too before you went to prison.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah. No,
divorced.
we were done. No, her husband's a great guy. Listen, talk about her husband. He's doing hard time, bro. I mean, he's been married like 20 years to this chick. I mean, I'll go back to prison. I'll go back. I would go back. She tough, bro. Tough.
Just dug a grave there for yourself.
Oh yeah,
but she was visiting you the whole time.
Yeah, but I don't know how he's hung in. He was a Marine. That's what I keep equating it to. Well, you were in the military. You're a Marine. You're a much tougher person than me, so you could handle it. But even him, she's broke him. She broke him along. I said to her one time, I said, he's like a beautiful stallion you've broken. She's like, I didn't break him, okay? He just knows his place. And I was my God. Oof. And she's like, don't act like it. Did you know what I mean?
I don't want to jump on the bandwagon here, but damn, I feel like I got a full picture of that.
Oh my God. Listen, just talk about, when we got divorced, I mean, just beat me down. I'm giving her everything. Just let me leave with my clothes.
Did she know about this?
I mean, she'll say no. I had no idea. I'm like, I think you almost convinced yourself of this at this point. So, yeah. So I was married to her, and I had a son, and I would say, so I'm committing fraud.
Do you think that played a role, though? That's my question. Like, do you think, because you said I was behind on my bills, they were going to steal my car out of the back lot and repossess it. You were worried about that, and you're trying to make money on an all-commission job. Do you think a part of you is thinking like, oh, I'm getting married, I have a kid on the way?
Well, at that time, I wasn't getting married. When I first started.
So when it first started, that wasn't a thing yet?
When it first started, was the money was it part of it? Was it a factor? Yeah, it was a factor, but let's face it, I also think that part of, honestly, that's to me, that's justification, because the truth is that, I always like to say, look, under the right situation, under the right circumstances, anyone will commit a fraud or a crime. Anyone will commit a crime in the right circumstances. And some people say, no, I would never do that.
Define crime.
You'll break the law.
Like jaywalk?
Like stealing. You'll steal under the right circumstances. You say, no, I would never do that. Really? Because if you're living in your car with your 2 kids and you have no money and there's a loaf of bread on the other side of the door in a Publix, I don't know if you have Publix, in a supermarket.
Not up here, but I know Publix.
You're going to grab that bread because your kids live another 3 days on that bread. So
right.
The only difference between that person and me is my threshold's lower. So I was going under. I didn't want to move back in with my parents. My father was an asshole, so I, desperately did not want to put myself back in that situation. So in part, I would say it's justification. I'm trying to justify why I committed crime, when most people they just wouldn't. They would say, you know what? I'm going to move in back with my parents. I'm just going to close legitimate loans. I'm going to put in the time and the effort, and I'm going to build a clientele base, and I'm going to do it the right way. Like, that's a good citizen. That's a good person. I wasn't that person. And that's the bottom line. I mean, so when I say, I needed the money, I did need the money. But the same, you would have needed the money, probably would not have broken the law.
Right.
I did. For me, my threshold was different. I desperately didn't want to disappoint my father. I didn't want to be an embarrassment. I wanted to impress him. There were all kinds of other things that were a part of that. And what it really boils down to is I made that decision based on pride. And I always say this, I tell this to the chick that I'm dating, to my girlfriend all the time. Every bad decision I've ever made was based on my pride. Every single one of them. And I mean, listen, tell you one thing.
But you didn't recognize that at the time.
Oh, of course
this
not.
Is way after.
At the time, I desperately need money. Oh, no, this isn't until later when I wrote, I was in prison, I started writing, I wrote a memoir. And you have to you have to start looking at yourself, self-introspective,
right.
Where you have to kind of really dig down. And I read several books on how to write memoirs. And one of them was about trying to find the things in your past, in your youth or in your childhood that created the person that you were, and try and I remember thinking, well, I had a fine childhood. I had a great childhood. Yeah, I did have a great childhood compared to my cellie who his mother thought he stole something from her one time when he was like 7, and she took an iron and burned his hand with it. He still had the burn mark. Like, yeah, Jesus. I had a dream childhood compared to that guy.
It's a good perspective.
But looking back, no, my father was an alcoholic. My mom was an enabler. My dad was a binge drinker. He was belligerent. He was rude, talked down to everybody. He was a narcissist.
Was he successful?
Super successful.
Really?
Super successful. Yeah, absolutely.
So he's functioning in that environment.
And took a ton. He was a State Farm manager, worked for State Farm Insurance, and took people that were driving, beat up Volkswagen Bugs that 2 years later are driving $100,000 Mercedes. I mean, he's making people, turning them into great salespeople. He was a great salesman.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, he was a great salesperson. He was a great manager, and that's how he managed me my whole life. But the truth is, I was a disappointment to him. So I did not want to move home.
So this is very, very interesting because you said two things even before that clincher right there a couple minutes ago where you said your dad was an asshole, as you just outlined why.
Yeah.
Happened to be a successful asshole, but he was an asshole, had problems. But you didn't want to, the reason your pride got in the way is because you didn't want to move home because you didn't, and as you just put it, you didn't want to be a disappointment to him.
Right.
And I'm always so curious about this because I'm lucky. Like, I have a great relationship with my parents. They're great people. Like, they're just kind of your normal good people. There was never any problems between me and them growing up. So when I talk with people who there was a relationship problem or something like that, I'm always wondering what makes you feel like you have to live up to someone who you don't like, or not even don't like, who you don't respect.
No, I had great. I think that's actually the opposite. I had amazing respect for my father.
Really?
I did not like him. As a person, I did not like him. You know what's funny?
Why'd you have respect for him?
He was super successful. And you know what he taught me when I was growing up? And I talk about this in the book, which is something that I never would have talked about had I not written that book.
Sure.
Because I never would have looked at it because I'd always denied it in myself. Just never took the time to really look at it. What he taught me was this. Was that if you make enough money, you can be a complete fucking asshole to everyone, and they will accept it. They will cater to you. They will enable your behavior, and you can basically boss people around and be a complete dickhead to everybody. And that was my dad.
He told you that?
No, but that's what he taught me.
Right.
By watching him. You can treat women badly. You can talk bad to my sisters. You can talk bad to my mother. You can talk to other men like they're practically fucking dogs, even though they could beat your ass.
And you wanted to be able to do that?
Yeah. Oh, I wanted to be just like my dad. Definitely wanted to be like my dad.
Wow.
I respected my father. Everybody respected my father. But the truth is, as you get older, you start to realize you're kind of an asshole. Like, you behave one way that you would tell me not to behave. Like if he saw me mouthing off to my girlfriend, he'd say, hey, you don't ever talk to women like that.
Right.
You know, they're like, what are you talking about? You talk to mom like she's a dog. You know, you talk to my sister like she's a dog. You're calling my sisters, whores and all kinds of names.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Right. And it's like, so, which isn't the way it works. Your parents are doing drugs and telling you not to do drugs. You're going to do drugs.
Right.
The difference is, like, I don't drink. I've never drank.
Really?
Never drank because this guy that I idolized was a complete drunk. Like, this guy, he would be sober for 3 months and go on a 2-week binge. This is what a good, and because you've been in the corporate world.
Yeah.
This is what a good salesman he was. Always in like the top 10 in the nation, always the top in the region. He was always the top salespeople. He has like 25, 26 agents. They're always part of what they call like the millionaire club. They always win the trips to Germany, to around the world. Yeah. They're always winning those trips. He's massive. And State Farm knew he had an alcohol problem. They put him through rehab twice. And I don't mean some bullshit 10-day rehab. We're talking about 60 and 90-day rehabs. They sent us, the last time they sent our whole family to rehab. We ended up going to Al-Anon, where the whole time my dad's...
You had to live at rehab?
No, not live there. But he's living in a rehab for like 60 days. And we have to, the family's going like twice a week. We're going to Al-Anon meetings. So like, how did I end up in rehab? How did I end up having to go
as
to
a kid?
Yeah, I'm like 12, 13 years. No,
Jesus.
Actually, that's not true. I was 17. I was 17. I
Either
remember.
way, yeah, you're not.
But it's like, how am I? And my mom's like, State Farm, they want us to go. It's like, what are you talking about? How did I end up here?
Because he makes some money, so they're gonna protect their asset.
They take him back. They put him back in. Boom, he's doing great. He's kick ass. He's sober for a year and a half. Bam. Has a relapse. My mom covers it up. She's telling people he's sick. Great enabler. And loved my dad to death. It was like, oh God, what is it? Where the, what is that? What was her name? Where you protect your, God, I can't believe it. Is it Stockholm syndrome? Where you,
I think Helsinki syndrome. Is that it? It's one of
one of those. Yeah. It's funny because that's exactly what I always say my mom had. Like she loved him. She thought he was wonderful. She thought this. She thought that. And it was just Stockholm syndrome. It was just like, what are you doing? But then he's paying all the bills. She's got brand new car every year or two. They go on vacations. She's living an amazing life. And periodically he's a complete douchebag. So, and it was just like that for all of us.
What's the trade-off? I mean, that's right. What it is for a lot of people. It's just you have a little bit of a what would appear as a contradiction there that was actually good for you on the one half, where it contradicted, where you recognize that his alcoholism was something that I guess could potentially be genetic, and you're like, well, I'm never going to touch that because I never want to be like that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you recognize what that made him in that environment, right?
Right.
Being on alcohol, being around the family, being abusive. But you didn't make the same recognition for how he treated people and what he got. You just saw the level, the stature in society, and you're like, well, shit, State Farm even paid for his rehab twice. That's how much power he has. Yeah. So I want that.
They I was just listen, bro. Like I'm borderline an asshole sober. What's alcohol going to do to me? And I saw what it did to him, I mean, that's just, so yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, I did not want to move back in there. I did not want to move in the house. I didn't want to hear him bossing my mom around. I would have done anything to not be there. So, I usually just kind of say, yeah, I needed the money, and I move on. But you just had to go all in. And so that's why I usually, because I tell these stories. Like, if you tell your whole story, the audio version of my book's like 10 hours long.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Easily.
So
your life's a movie.
Right. I condense it to the quick, I needed the money, I did it. Because people can understand that. I don't typically go into that whole thing. So, yeah, but basically, yeah. Didn't want to move home, didn't want them, I needed the money. So yeah, that's what I did. So I committed that fraud and continued to commit fraud whenever it came up. Not going out of my way to do it. I'm just doing it to get my commissions.
And these are at the beginning, it's simpler fraud, and not to like change it up here, but heavy fraud is when you're stealing someone's entire identity and doing something like that, like in my mind when I'm thinking of it. But what you were doing here was just changing W-2s, changing their data so they could get a loan.
It's a gray area.
Right. So you do that for it sounds like a year or two, then you open up your own place.
Absolutely.
So what happens once you get your full control?
I hire like six guys, which ends up being like 10 or 12 guys. I think I ended up like 13 or so guys at one point. And, we're
sales guys.
Sales guys, yeah. Brokers, mortgage brokers.
Yeah.
And they're all getting their licenses. Everybody's licensed. I'm an FHA approved lender, conventional lender, VA approved. It looks totally legit. But I'd say 70, 80% of those loans are not complete fraud. They have fraud in them. I hate it. I got to stop saying that. I go completely fraud. They're not completely fraud. I'm going to get to complete fraud. Yeah. But yeah, they got some fraud in them. And now I'm quickly just managing all of these guys. They're coming in. Look, man, I got this guy. Here's boom, boom, boom. Here's the issue. I'm like, okay, look, here's what we're going to do. And I go through the whole thing. This. We're going to do this. Go have him get a cashier's check. What's his bank? Okay, great. I got some bank statements in the back. Here, I got these. So it's SunTrust or Sun? Okay, SunTrust. Okay, great. I'm going to redo the bank account, and I print out a couple bank accounts, send in the original. Like I know how to get aroround all the guidelines.
Were you using some of the fake banks you alluded to?
Yeah.
At this point? Or so you were already setting that stuff up.
Sure. Or what I do is so I had bank statements for almost every bank out. So let's say you're with Bank of America. So I had the bank statements, but they were just the paperwork.
Blank.
So they're blank.
How'd you get them?
I ended up whiting out several people's, and I went to Kinko's and I made them on the right paper and everything. And then I trim them down because bank statements are slightly trimmed down. So I don't trim them down right away because you have to run them through the copier. Right. So I then already have templates of what your normal bank statements look like. Your car payment went through, your this, that. So I go through what's his rent payment. Okay. And I change the rent payment, I change the car payment, I change a couple of things. I print out 3 bank statements. I print them out on the blank bank statements. I trim them down. I fold them up. You send in the original, and they won't call the bank. What happens is the underwriter will typically call you and say, "Hey, listen, you made the mistake of sending in the originals." Well, they have the original, why would they call the bank?
Oh,
right. So
Mm-hmm.
I just got around that one. And if they do, they still...
Did they ever... Yeah, I was going to say, they had to do that sometimes, right?
I mean, even if they do call, the guy has the... the guy wouldn't have the money in the bank anymore. Because by that point, I'd have told him to take the money out of the bank, put it into... So let's say the money's not coming from your bank account. Maybe the seller is giving you your down payment. So we're going to have the seller go get a cashier's check, make a copy of the cashier's check, deposit it into the bank or into the title company, have the title company write me a letter saying that they are holding the borrower's down payment in their escrow. They sent me a letter. They're going to verify, yes, we have it. I'm going to then show the cashier's check, but I'm going to put my guy's name on it. I'm then going to show the bank statements where he had all the money in the bank and he took it out. I'm going to show the transaction where he removed it. And now if they call and get an average, the average actually is probably there or pretty close to...
Wow.
So there's just nothing for them to get.
Basically.
Right. So it's everything is supporting the story. And you send it all in plus the originals. I just got around the guideline. So...
If you fuck up... I'm just thinking about this out loud because I don't...
Right.
I never did this, right? I'm not in there doing it. And I know it's like anything else. You get good at it. Things come quicker. But like if you fuck up one thing...
And what are they going to do? They're going to call me? They're going to call me and say what?
So you were never worried about that?
No, they would call me. What would they say?
We caught you?
You caught me doing what did you catch? And they go, do you know what they would say? We called the bank and the average doesn't match the same average. Or really they wouldn't because who knows how bank statements averages come out. You know what I mean? Like the bank statements say this. Or if they said, hey, we sent these to the bank. Something didn't look right, so we sent it to them, and they verified that these are not the statements. Are you serious? Are you telling me that my customer gave me fake bank statements? But they were originals. I saw the originals. No, we have the originals, Mr. Cox. So what are you saying? I'm saying he made them look like originals. My God, he's good. What am I going to... I'm not going to say, you got me. My God, are you telling me that a guy that works at a tow truck company did this? That's insane.
But I'm saying if it happens multiple times. One time I could see that, maybe 2 times. But like if a bank's calling up Mr. Cox, the mortgage broker.
That's the 3rd customer that's done this. It sounds like I'm not going to admit it. And what are they going to do? They're not calling the FBI.
That's what I'm saying, though. You don't think some of them would hang up the phone and be like, all right, this guy's up to some shit.
Call the FBI. Like, I'm not worried. You're going to go to the customer. What's he going to say? Oh, I didn't do it. Really? Because you're the one who was going to benefit. He's the one. They're not going to continue. Look, first of all, they're not catching him. And the few times that I got caught, like I've been caught red-handed. And
by other banks and stuff.
Listen, I was caught one time by a bank in Chicago called Pinnacle Bank Corp.
Guys, I keep telling you this every week, and I'm going to keep telling you this every week until you do it, but you have got to get an 8 Sleep Pod Pro cover if you haven't already. The 8 Sleep Pod Pro cover, quite simply, is the greatest piece of sleep technology ever invented in the history of this world, ever. Ever. Say ever like a 4th time just for a little effect. Anyway, the 8 Sleep Pod Pro cover comes in queen or king sizes. It goes on top of your current mattress, depending on what the size is, and it is wired directly into 8 Sleep's proprietary app that measures your sleep stages and a bunch of other science that I don't know anything about throughout the night, such that you get an optimized full sleep. So as I like to say, you'll sleep 6 hours and feel like you slept 8. So if you want to have more energy, I don't know, if you want to live longer too, sleep's very, very important towards overall health. You're going to hit that link in my description. You're going to see that it says 8 Sleep. You're going to go there. You're going to see that there's a promo code checkout where you use the code TRENDIFIER. Very, very important. Use the code TRENDIFIER, TRENDIFIER, and you can get $150 off your own 8 Sleep Pod Pro cover today. Supports 8 Sleep, supports the show, supports your health. What's better than that?
They caught us for $2 million in bad loans. Because one of the things I used to do was this really is going to be 3.5 hours, 4 hours.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things I would do is so when you get a canceled check, you know how they run it through and you get on the back, it shows it's canceled, everything. I made 24 months worth of canceled checks. They looked like they were canceled checks. And so I had templates from different banks. $700, $900. This is back when rent was not $1,500, $2,000. These were in Florida.
Now, how do you make one of those?
I mean, I would take my bank account, right?
Yeah.
My bank information, and I would the actual number, the routing number doesn't have, so all the routing information on the back just has like the date and the amount that went through, and then it has like a number on it, and then it has like your account number, let's say. So I would get the customer to write out 24 months worth of checks for, let's say, $700.
Right.
Right. This is if we're going to say it went to their bank. Typically, I had this go through another bank. So all I have to change is the account number.
Yeah.
So the routing number of the bank goes through on the back. So it's, let's say, $900. $900 went through on the 3rd on the 3rd, and then it has a routing number.
Right.
Okay, that's on the back. And there's some other weird numbers. Okay, and then on the front, it's the bank account number.
And that's what you're changing.
So I'm changing the bank account number for Bank of America, and I'm changing the upper left-hand corner. I'm changing your name and your address.
Now, how with your fine arts degree, how would you pull this off to not have it have any look completely convincing?
I mean, I would just cut and paste it on there and make a copy. Then now you're getting a copy of a copy. With the bank, the bank you're borrowing from is used to you're faxing them over, or you're making a copy of it and you're mailing it in.
True.
So they sign it. The customer signs it. I've got 24 months of them. Well, so now it looks like this customer paid $900 for the last 24 months, and all those checks went through the bank. So they're good. And keep in mind, if they call the bank, if it's one of my banks, I'm verifying it. But they never call. That's the great thing about being the bank. You start to know they never call on this. They never call on that. So now you can even do it for Bank of America, for SunTrust, for whatever, because I know they're not calling. When they see a canceled check, that's as solid as it gets.
Right.
He gave us 24 months worth of canceled checks for $1,200 a month. He's been paying. Look. Oh, okay. They don't even think fraud. They go, oh.
Set.
Oh, yeah, cool.
We're good.
We're good.
Yeah. And especially back then, they were only looking for just there's not anything wrong, right? Whereas today, they're like, everything's wrong.
Yeah.
Assume it's wrong.
Right.
Very different psychology back then.
But even now, they look perfect. Like they don't think anything's wrong.
Something like that.
Right. If you did call, someone answers the phone. You go to the website, you call the phone. It's all legit. So I had one mortgage broker who would continually use the same checks and continually sent those checks to the same lender. Well, one of the underwriters at some point got like 2 of his loans at the same time.
Oh, no.
And was underwriting them both basically at the same time or within a few hours.
Damn it, Chad.
Yeah, exactly. LaFuente, Eddie LaFuente.
Oh, God.
And she, jerk off. So she looked at him and she went, oh, wow.
Same shit.
These look, oh, wow. Like the names are the only things that are changed on these two, right? So it's the same $1,100, $1,100. The dates went through the same. Everything's identical. It's the same bank. Everything. And she went, oh no. She goes to the owner. The owner catches it. They pull all of his files and pull like
every single loan.
Every one of them. Like just an idiot. Like I've got 8 or 9 different banks. What are you doing? He's just laziness. It's just sloppy. I can't stand sloppy fraud. So he ends up getting. It ends up being a couple $1 million. Like it very quickly, when you're doing $150,000, $200,000 loans,
sure.
It very quickly ends up being a couple over the course
worth
of a
lot
month.
more back then too.
Yeah, listen, it's bad. It was bad. And so I get a phone call. First I get a phone call.
Now, this one, were you worried about this one? Were you worried like they're going to call somebody on this? Because it was so egregious.
It was egregious. So I was concerned, but I was ready to throw Eddie LaFuente under the bus. So I wasn't concerned that I had done anything. So the owner calls up. So Gary calls me up, and I'd gotten a heads up from the account executive. Called me and said, "Well, there's something going on. They're pulling files. I just got a phone call from one of the the secretaries or whoever, the loan processor said, oh my God, we just pulled this. You need to call Matt. There's a whole conspiracy of all these. So they called me and I'm ready. I get the phone call. Hey, Gary, what's up? And Gary's like, so, I don't know if you've heard this or not. He said, but we caught this, there's a problem. You've got a broker there that he's using these canceled checks. And I go, a rogue broker? And he goes, yeah, a rogue broker. I said, okay.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah, I was like, and he said, because you don't know anything about this. I said, absolutely not, Gary. And he went,
I'm offended by the assertion.
I've been offended. I've done the offended. What are you saying? So he was like, yeah, well, so he explains, we pulled all the files. We did this. And Matt, this is a major issue. And I said, okay. He said, have you seen these? I said, no, I have not. And he said, listen, I've been doing this 20 years. These things are amazing. And I was like, I didn't want to say, well, I have a fine arts degree. So I said, listen, bro, I haven't seen them, but I'll take a look. And he goes, okay. He said, well, look, there's $2 million, and we've already sold $1 million worth of this. Has already been sold. There's $1 million of
it's
bad
already
loans.
Passed off to another holder.
Household Bank.
God.
Household Bank. Remember Household Bank?
Yeah. This was the whole system.
HSBC. Yeah. So he's already sold these. He still has $1 million on his pipeline though. And he goes, so there's still $1 million here. And I went, okay. And he said, he said, I don't know what. He said, Matt, so you understand it's $1 million. I said, Gary, let's cut to the chase, bro. I said, if you're expecting at the end of this phone call that I'm cutting you a check for $1 million, it's never going to happen. That's just not going to happen. So I suggest we start figuring out how we can deal with this in a way that doesn't have me cutting a check for $1 million. And he went, and I think it was like $2 million, because let's face it, ethically, he should have contacted Household Bank and said, listen, man, we just sold you $1 million worth of bad paper. So I went, and he sat there and he goes, no, look, I get that. He said, you don't know anything about this. I said, absolutely not. And he said, that broker, what's going on with him? I said, he's packing it. He was actually sitting in my office staring at me. I go, he's packing his bags right now. And he was like,
what's Eddie doing right now?
Yeah, he's just looking at me. Oh, he's hoping not to go to jail.
Right.
And I said, look, if we can not call the authorities or anything, and I said that would be great. And he goes, no. He said, listen, nobody wants the FBI looking through their stuff. He said, what I'm going to do is we're gonna go ahead and pass these off to Household Bank. I just need you to give me your word that if any of these loans come back on me, that you'll help me get rid of the properties. Of course. What am I going to say? Nah, you're on your own. Fuck you, Gary.
Yeah,
I'm like, of course, bro. I said, I got
you,
bro. So, and let's face it. Here's the funny thing: is like most people are like, oh, that's a fraudulent loan. Yeah, but guess what? Fraudulent loans, they perform. So, believe it or not, now do they perform as high as a normal mortgage? Probably not.
Depends on what the fraud is.
Right, but let's face it, probably not. But if it goes under 2 years later, what is the chances that the third bank that now owns this is going to catch it? Zero.
Yeah,
it's almost never going to be
the difference between you writing up. You used this example earlier. The difference between you and writing up like a $62,000 a year income to $69,000 a year income for a loan versus somehow getting some dude who's making $15,000 a year into $1 million house. Those are two very different levels of what the fraud can affect on the final product.
Right. It's reasonable. Like he can make that. And I'm just doing it for at this point. I'm just doing it for commissions. Like
sure.
I'm just doing it to
just
keep
money.
My place going.
Building the business.
So anyway, he says, okay, no problem. He passes it off, and maybe a week or two later, he actually flies down and takes me and several other brokers out to lunch. And he told me after he'd had a few drinks, he actually told me, look, I don't care what fraudulent loans come through, as long as I don't end up getting caught. If they can go through our underwriting department and they never come back on me, he's, man, I don't care if everything you send me is fraud.
Now, how much time did this guy do in prison?
No, he didn't do any time. He ended up bankrupting that company probably 2 years later.
Did he get prosecuted at all?
No.
Did he have to go on probation? Something?
No, what did he do? He just passed them through.
That's what I'm saying, though. See, this is like
he's just a banker.
It takes a village to burn everything down, but like you have to know he actively knew it was fraud. And this isn't $2. This one right here was a couple $1 million, and now the implication is
he's still taking our stuff. He's still taking our stuff. Send us some more stuff. Listen, the account executive was in like the next day, and she was like, "Wow, you dodged a bullet.
Killing it, man."
so listen, we just came out with a new program. So yeah, you know what's so funny? You know the liar loans that everybody talks about.
Liar loans.
Oh, they
Remind me.
No asset, no doc loans, no documentation. You know the ones where they said
that was in the movie. What's it called? Big Short. I think.
Yeah, well that's
right?
Yeah, there were tons of those. You know how many of those I've done? Almost none.
Really?
Why would I? I can make the W-2s and pay stubs. I can verify your employment. I can verify your bank statements. I don't need to. I can get you the same loan with a higher LTV, lower down payment, lower interest rate, and I can jack your interest rate up higher and get more points on the back. It's to my benefit to create the documents and charge you a $7,000 or $8,000 broker fee than have you go through a liar loan program and charge you $3,000.
What's really bizarre is that if you think about where the business went ahead of the housing crisis, like in those prime years, like call it 02, 03, 04, 05, 06, to where, yeah, you had these type of loans where people just walked in, oh yeah, we'll give you a fucking house with a jumbo loan and all that, adjustable loan, because then they wouldn't be able to pay, and that's what crashed the whole market. If you had been getting into this business, maybe, because you said it was like 98, 99, something like that, if you had gotten into the business in like 02, 03, you probably would have never, that manager probably never has to say, change that. You're probably just going to get that guy a loan.
Well, I was still doing loans up till late 2003.
Sure, but I'm saying you were already deep into also changing shit and getting the big...
Yeah.
The ship had sailed at that point, is my point. Whereas if you had just come in when this wild, wild west happened, because... And I'll actually say, righteously so, for most of them, the mortgage brokers from 03 to 07, like none of them got prosecuted or anything or looked at because they were just using the rules that they were allowed to use at the time. They were allowed to say like, oh, you make $40,000 a year, here's your $1.5 million house, because they could. It was open, whereas fraud is fraud, right? Like that's always going to be a crime.
Right. Well, those guys were saying, some guy who was making $40,000 a year, they were saying he was making $300,000 a year. They were lying and saying he's making $300,000. And so, yeah, he's getting he won't get a 95%. He's getting a 90%. But he's got a 750 credit score, so we're going to lend him 90 or 95% of the loan, and he's got the down payment. So we're going to do it, even though he can't prove that he can actually make those payments.
And what was the term for that loan again? You said
we called them liar loans, but they call them like no asset or no verification loans. Or they call them stated income programs. I think that's the term they typically use, stated income programs. We just state what the income is.
Gotcha. But like the one that you were talking about with the $2 million in outstanding loans, that was obviously with a real bank and all that. The banks that you invented, though, this is what's fucking with me. You had websites for them. What were some of the names, for example, that you would come up with?
I mean, there was really only, was there 2 or 3? It was Bank of Ybor was one. Because there's a place in Tampa called Ybor City. So it's called Bank of Ybor. I think there actually is a Bank of Ybor now. And then there was Southern Exchange Bank. God, I think there was one more that had some weird name. But I think we only used it a couple of times. Like that was towards the last few months.
So I guess the question is like,
was it Columbia Bank? Or there is a Columbia Bank in Tampa, but we always did them so they were similar, kind of close to the banks that were there. Like there was a Southern Exchange Bank. Ours was Southern Exchange Bank of Clarksville. So it was very small, only had 3 locations.
So that's my question. Like there's a database. I'm thinking in back then terms, I wasn't around, but like I got to assume there's a database of registered financial institutions and whatever. So all someone would have to do is type in Southern Bank of Clarksville and there's nothing there.
That actually happened with the Secret Service. When I got caught, they actually had done that. They subpoenaed the
which was easy.
To subpoena?
No, I'm saying like that was an easy catch for them at that point. So they're like, let's just check it.
Yeah, but they actually thought the bank existed. They were looking for funds that were missing. They actually thought the bank existed. They didn't realize that everything was fake. It was during my debriefing when I had to tell them that the bank was fake. And they were like, no, it's in the registry. And I was like, yeah, there was a Southern Exchange Bank of Clarksville, or a Southern Exchange Bank. It had been sold to like Bank of America or SunTrust or something.
Shit.
So the number,
Service.
The number was still there. And so they actually looked it up, and I go, who'd you subpoena? And they go, well, there was an address. They said, we haven't gotten anything yet. I said, you're not good. Guess what? You're not gonna.
Wow.
So, and they said, I called the number, and I was like, really? Because by the time they'd actually interviewed me, it had been months, and I was like, really?
Who answered?
I said, who did? I said, and he goes, I've left several messages. I said, well, I haven't paid for it in months. And so he actually took the phone out and called it and went, boo doo doo, like it. And I said, yeah, I told you I haven't paid it in months. He's like, I can't believe it. I've been leaving messages. We subpoenaed them. Like they weren't returning their calls, and they thought it's because we're the Secret Service and they don't want to deal with us. Like he's like, sometimes people just ignore the calls if they get called from the FBI, and the institutions just won't answer. They won't return it. And they're like, well, we don't have to return their call unless we get subpoenaed. So we subpoenaed them.
This is such a foreign concept to me because, like, I can't, knowing the rules that I had to know, like, I can't even imagine something like this getting 24 hours through without someone sounding the alarm on it. But, like, inventing a fake bank, you would change the names a little bit and then, boom, you have an answering service, you're done. And now you get to say that, I guess you were using them to say, like, oh, money came through here that never did, and then you'd tie it somehow to real banks?
Well, or you had a down payment. So you have an actual down, like your down payment, when you put down, let's say 10% on your house, you can't just say, oh, I had the money in the bank. They go, okay, well, we need it. And it has to have been there for 60 to 90 days, depending on the program. Right. Well, these people don't have their money. Like usually my people were buying a house and the seller was giving them their down payment to get the loan, to get them to, so they can qualify for the loan so I can get my price. If I'm selling you the house for $300,000 and these people don't quite have $15,000 to put down, they've got 10. Well, the seller will sometimes give them 5 just so they can qualify for get the 300. Now, instead of getting 300.
They would do that? The seller of the house would give money to the person buying it
for their down payment. Yeah, totally illegal.
Yeah, but then how do they even get it? Then it's like a handshake deal, like you're going to give me that back, I guess.
Well, no, what I would always have them do is just put it directly into the title company, into their escrow account. Or you just get the cashier's check, you bring it the day of closing. So they get a cashier's check from, the remitter would be from the borrower, but keep in mind, they can go back to their bank and put it in their bank. So they get it, or even if they put their own name on it, it doesn't matter. I'll change it.
Just for people trying to follow out there, long story short is the money technically never leaves the seller. They just make it look like they're
right. They're not depositing the money in the bank account. Let's say they go get money orders, blank money orders. You can get $5,000 in blank money orders, and then you send me the copies of the money orders. Just make copies of them, send them to me, and I fill them out from my customer. But so now when I make copies and send them to the bank, they think there's 5,000 in money orders that my customer has, even though they're still blank money orders. They don't get the real money orders.
I guess the only open question there that I still am not sure about is the fact that you're representing the buyer, right? Like you're the mortgage broker.
Yes,
or are you representing both?
I'm representing the buyer.
Okay, so then the seller, you're just the guy representing the buyer, and you would just be able to convince the seller, like, oh, hi, I represent client X who's buying your home. You're going to do this, and they would just do it?
Well, typically the real estate agent was involved, but even if there was no real estate agent involved, and I have a conversation with you, you believe it. You can talk to...
Yeah, they wouldn't know, right?
Well, first of all, it's one of two things. Either I'm telling you, listen, this is what I'm going to do. He doesn't have the money. Boom, boom, boom. Here's how he can qualify for the loan. This is what I need you to do. You're either going to do it or you're not going to do it. This is how it goes through. Here's why. I explain it. Like my sales technique for anybody isn't bullshitting you. It's laying out, it's educating you on how it's going to work. And that way like if I was selling cars, I'm not going to do the high pressure. I'm not going to hype, well, you need this. I'm going to say, look, this is the reason this is the best car for you. And I am going to explain why. You're either going to accept that explanation or go somewhere else. That's it. Like I'm not going to hype. There's no high pressure. I'm not pressuring the seller. Here's what he can get: this much money. He's got this. He's got this. We need $5,000 from you. Well, that means that I'm not going to make $300,000. I'm going to make $295,000. That's right. If you want, we can jack up the sales price by $5,000, and we'll cover that down payment. But now you have to come up with $5,000 and an extra $100.
You're basically being transparent by not being transparent, but making it seem like you're transparent.
Right. Well,
at the end of the day.
Well, here's what I'm not doing. I'm not telling them, oh, by the way, this is complete 100% fraud. But they know. They know.
You think they would know every time?
I'm not
like the seller.
If they said to me, hey, listen, man, like I think this is fraud. But you know what almost never happened? They almost never said, hey, this is fraud. Almost never.
That's what I'm saying. I think a lot of people kind of goes above, because these are numbers. You're switching things around. There's a lot of people who are just like, okay, all right, sounds good. So like the people who did say, oh, this is fraud, what'd you say to them then?
Okay, I'm going to give you an example right now.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So I had
hello, sir. I'd like to sell my house.
Well, no, I actually, okay, so this was something where I didn't even ask the person. I'm going to give you a real example where the guy found out the whole thing was fraud. Like he found out that this woman,
seller.
He found out that the woman buying his house did not work where I said she worked. He actually got
Oh, so you changed her job.
I changed her job. So because she had like multiple jobs and she was currently working at like Walmart, and didn't make enough money to qualify. So I said she worked at this other company and she'd been there 5 years. I gave him W-2s and pay stubs. Okay, fine. That's a done deal. I've already verified it. He's upset because he feels like the title company's charging too much. So he calls down there and starts arguing about how much money they're charging. During the course of that, somehow or another, the title person ends up telling him they have already received the package. None of it's going to change. This is the way it is. And ends up mentioning that, one of the reasons the fees were so high, she was going through non-conforming, getting a non-conforming loan. She wasn't getting a loan through like Bank of America. She's getting it through a subprime company. And he's like, why are these fees so high? Because we had him paying the fees. Well, and she explains why. Because of this, because of this, because of this.
Wait, he had to pay the fees?
I made him pay the fee. Like you've already agreed to pay up to $5,000 in closing fees. She doesn't have the car closing costs, but I raised up the purchase price to cover it. Like we're really just incorporating it in.
So he agreed to it.
He agreed to it.
It was just you said up to 5,000. So if it's
5,000, and he's 5, up. And for some reason he thinks he's going to call and talk them down. It's going to save him some money. Why? It's coming out no matter what. Like what are you doing?
Yeah, you already signed that.
He's
away.
A jerk off.
Yeah.
So while I'm committing fraud, I'm calling him. So,
two jerk offs here.
So yeah, absolutely. So he calls up and she goes, well, look, she this, she that, and somehow or another she ends up saying she works here. She I don't know, she works here, and he's like, what are you talking about? She works at Walmart. No, she works here. No, she works here. I actually went to Walmart and when she signed the contract, I know I've talked to her. So we talks about she's been there for like 8 months or something, and she said no, she's been here for 5 years. No, can't be. She just moved to the area. Like as it's starting to unravel, he's realizing like everything's got to be. What do you mean she just moved to the area from Brooklyn? What are you talking about? She's been here 5 years. She's been paying at the same place. She's lived at the. No, she just moved. Her lease is up in 3 months or 2 months. And she's like, okay. She's realizing this is fraud. She reads off what's being said. She knows it's fraud. He knows it's fraud. She calls the title. The title person ends up calling the bank and tells them this is what this guy's saying. Something's not right. That whole loan's done. He calls up and tells me, look.
I got you.
This is a seller.
Yeah.
He calls up and says, listen, man. So he comes to where I'm at. He comes to my office. Tries to talk to me on the phone about it. I say, like, I'm not talking to you on the phone. Come to my office. Comes to my office. And he preached being a good Christian. He was a big guy. Like, he was flipping these houses, and she's a good Christian. And he's bringing all this up. Like, when the first time I talked to him, he was telling me about being a good Christian. And he comes to my office.
Bringing God into fraud.
Well, he comes into the conference room, and we're talking. He's like, yeah, they told me this, they told me that. And then I said, right. I said, okay, well, here's what I can do. I can take that loan and go to this other company, which has also approved her, and we can close in like a week. We'll go to another title company. The fees are probably going to be the same. And I said, don't call anybody, don't this. That's what they are if you want to close the loan. And he goes, yeah, but this is fraud. I said, well, I don't see. First of all, I said, it has nothing to do with you.
Fraud.
I said, you want to sell the house or not? Well, I don't know how comfortable I feel about this. And I went, well, I said, I understand what's happening here. I said, you want to sell that? Oh, I do want to sell the house. I said, okay, well, can't you do this? She starts giving me all these ideas. And I'm like, listen, bro, this chick, she was evicted here. She was here. I've done this. I've done all these things to get the loan to go through. You believe she can make the payments, don't you? Yes. You want to help her? Yes. She goes to your church? Yes.
Oh, no.
And I said, okay. I said, so you're saying you wanted to get the house. I'm telling you this is the only way to get it. Well, I don't know how comfortable I feel about that. And I said, right, but you're also flipping houses, and this is what you want to do primarily, right? Because you're trying to kind of transition from another job. He's flipping houses. You want to help get good Christians into your houses, right? And he goes, right. He said, well, yeah, I think that's the right thing to do. I said, okay, let me explain something.
You hit him with religion for this.
He's hit me with religion.
Yeah, I know, but that's what I'm saying. You brought it right back around.
Of course. Not just that. I said, listen, and he goes, I need to think about this. I said, okay, well, I want you to think about this. I said, but while you're thinking about that, I said, I want you to think about this. I said, one time there's a guy one time there's a small town that's flooding, and there's a guy in the flood. I said, and as the town is flooding, he's standing in the church. I said, and the Coast Guard comes by, or I'm sorry, the Marines come by and they say, hey, jump in the back of this truck.
God will save me for that story.
Jump in the back of the truck, the pickup truck. We're going to save you. And he says, no, God's going to save me. I said, then the water keeps raising. I said, he has to climb up on the top of the roof. I said, and the water raises and a boat comes by and it says, hey, jump. They go, jump in the boat. He goes, no, God's going to save me. I said, it keeps going. He climbs all the way up to the top of the steeple and he's holding onto the cross. I said, there's a helicopter comes. They lower a basket and they say, get in the basket. He says, no, God's going to save me. I said, and finally, the water keeps raising and he drowns. And when he gets up to heaven, he says, God, why didn't you save me? And God says, I sent a truck, I sent a boat, and I sent a helicopter. What did you want me to do? What did you expect? I said, what I'm telling you is I am your truck, I am your boat, and I am your helicopter. I go, if you want this loan to close next week, I said, this is how we do it. I said, otherwise, put your house back on the market.
He looked at you and said, amen.
And he looked at me and he said, well, if this is the only way. I said, it's the only way. And he goes, all right. And he got up and he walked off. And a week later, it closed.
It is amazing. It is amazing the decisions people make in a bind. And especially when you put like dollars and cents into it and they start, you know how people get about money. They start thinking about their cash flows. They start thinking about, well, if I can't do this, then I won't be able to do that. And it all comes back to their personal life, what they want to buy. It comes back to their family, everything. And then boom, a guy like that walks in there preaching about God and everything and trying to help out a good Christian, walks out convincing himself that like, oh, I did the right thing because I'm helping a good Christian. When in reality, he just went along with the whole show.
Yeah. Hey, listen, God bless him. So listen, so I mean, it wasn't difficult for me to explain to the people, this is how it works. This is the way it works, and I go, and that's the big thing is, the takeaway close. This is the way it is. That's the way it is.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
That's it. And it's like, no, I'm not going to do it. Great. I understand. Great. So I call up, I tell her to find another house. I send another investor her way. I do this, I do that. He goes off. Listen, honestly, 50% of the time, that guy calls me back in a couple of days. Listen, I've thought about it. If we can get this thing to go through. Right, because you know what he has to do? He has to put the house back on the market. He has to wait. It's 30 days to find a buyer. Then that person needs 30 days to close. 60 days. That's multiple more payments.
Right.
So, that's that much more time for kids to throw windows through the vacant house that's in the neighborhood. Listen, it's all bad. Houses don't do well if they're not lived in. The AC has to be run, the water has to be, maintained, the water pressure. There's all kinds of things. It just doesn't. Houses don't do well empty.
You were in a high, even with lower price houses. We're always talking money here, right?
Yeah.
Even if you buy in a bad neighborhood, you're spending high 5 figures, 6 figures on it, right? So you're in the perfect spot to be able to do this because you're talking about big chunks of people's quote unquote potential liquidity. You're talking about assets that, to use as you just described right there, have to be upkept, right? There's time value of money out the ass literally every day, but call it every month, right? So you have people in a situation where they're constantly forced to think about like runways here. And then you just say, well, you can sit on the runway for 2 hours or your flight can take off now. And if this were something where it's lower cost, a regular product or something like that, it never works because people aren't desperate. They're not as concerned about the hit to them personally, but because it's this level of finance, you basically always have them in some kind of corner right when you start.
Right. Yeah. Well, listen, and that's on every aspect of the loan process at that time. At that time, you were, as a broker, I was allowed to order the appraisals. You know how many times we would get one, maybe we'd have, so I've got 12 guys, let's say, doing 4 to 6 loans a month at $150,000, let's say, on average per loan. But which now those houses are $300,000 or something. In Florida, up here, those houses are $1 million. It's like
Florida, a little farther north, but yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the numbers, people are like, where do you buy a house? I'll get that in the comments. Where do you buy a house for $150,000 in Tampa, Florida, in New York City? 25 years ago or 20 years ago. So, but if you're an appraiser and you're making $400, let's say you're making $400 and you're doing 20 loans you're doing 20 appraisals for me, you and one other guy, that's $8,000 a month. Do you know how much money you have into your $400? You have maybe a few hours of work and you're making $400 per appraisal. You're making $8,000 for very little money. It's just software. Like it's driving out to the house, taking some photographs, coming back and spending an hour or two punching in some stuff, printing it out. I mean, you're making $400. You're doing a couple of those a day. You're making $8,000 on my company every month. So when I meet you out at a house and you walk around and you say, listen, Matt, there's a lot of deferred maintenance here. Like there's a problem here in the roof and there's here and there. Right, I know, but that's going to be fixed. So do me a favor, don't put that on the appraisal. And he goes, yeah, Matt, I don't know. I'm like, bro, come on, what are you doing? I told you I'm going to fix it. You trust that I'm going to fix it? Let's go ahead. And they go, okay, like that. That's
if you don't do it, I'll find someone else.
Well, it starts slow. It's like where you throw I forget if they say it's a caterpillar or a frog. You throw a frog, in a hot pan, he'll jump out immediately. If you put him in a room temperature pan and you slowly turn up the heat, he'll just sit there and boil to death. So, I don't ever throw him in the hot pan, So what I did was I would say, I'd get him a little here, a little there. And before you know it, you're going in and you're saying, look, I need you to say this is a 4-unit building. And they're like, it's a 5-unit building. Because if in real estate, if it's over 5 units, it's commercial. It's a commercial loan. We didn't do commercial loans. And the problem with this one building I'm thinking about is that commercial loans, there were no other commercial properties in the area to compare it to. So you can't get a loan on it. Why? Because there's no other comparables. So I had this one house that was an issue for this borrower. And I said, look, I need you to say that this apartment building is 4 units. And the real estate agent was like, the appraiser was like, yeah, but it's 5 units. I was like, no, it's 4 units. And he's like, I don't know, Matt. I mean, I looked up on the MLS. It says 5 units.
Oh, we already had that on the record.
Right. And it says it's selling for $100,000. You're telling me you want me to bring it in at, let's say, $250,000. I go, right. I'm having it taken down. They're removing the listing, and we're putting the listing back up at $250,000 as a 4-unit. So you can reference that. And we're saying that it's been completely remodeled, which explains why it went from a 5-unit to a 4-unit. I said, so I need you to take the pictures, take the best pictures. And he goes, what am I supposed to say about the other unit? I said, what are you talking? Are you talking about the tool shed? You're talking about the shed? I go, because that efficiency is just a shed. That's like a workroom where they keep the lawnmower and everything. He goes, what about the 5th meter? I go, the 5th meter is what runs that. That's the house meter. It runs all the electrical outside and it runs the sprinkler system. And he goes, what sprinkler system? I said, I think you should throw a sprinkler system in there that's being run by the house meter. What are you talking about? I said, plus the surveillance cameras. And he goes, he's like, and I'm like, listen, bro,
we could do that.
Work with me. And he said, yeah, I just don't feel comfortable doing that. I said, I totally understand. Go back to my office, and every one of my brokers, I walk and I go, who has anything with Steve, whatever his name was? I do. Give me them.
Gone.
We're canceling all of them. We start cancel. He just starts boom, 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 boom. He gets like 7 or 8 cancellations, and then a couple other ones say, hey, don't worry about doing this one. 2 days later or a day later, I get a phone call that says, I'm going to go out to that place and open the things for that 4-unit. And I go, okay. I said, and he said, can I get those appraisals back? Of course. They're all coming over right now. I'm sorry about the glitch. No problem, Matt. It's going to be all right though, right? Absolutely. You can trust me. Absolutely. And then they do it and the loan goes through and the people make the payments and it never came back on him. I've had him go into houses that were gutted.
And he just did.
I mean, there's nothing in the house. He's putting pictures of other houses in.
Oh my God.
Because at this point, he's $8,000 plus he's got a few other accounts. So so if you're making $12,000 a month and $8,000 is gone, you know how long it takes to build up those types of clients where they're sending you 20 appraisals? That's a lot of appraisals. So, I had a lot of the ability to do that. And one of the things I was doing was I was buying houses. Like we could talk about this all day, but we're never going to get through my appraisal. We're never going to get through to my story. Like this is like the beginning of my story. This is just how I became a scumbag. So what ended up happening was I ended up going to I ended up buying houses. So I would buy a house in my name.
Okay.
Right. So if I buy a house in my name and I sell it to you.
What year are we in now?
2001.
Okay.
So if I buy a house and I sell it to you, I can't do the loan. Through my mortgage company, it's not an arm's length transaction. So I would buy a house and I'd renovate it. I'd get an appraisal, and then I'd sell it to my wife in her maiden name. She never took my name as my married name. I never would let her. She's like, oh, no, I'm going to be, Gail Cox. And I was like, no, you're not. No. Why? Because there's something called seasoning, where if you buy a house for, let's say, $50,000 and you fix it up for $50,000, and now it's worth $200,000, right? Because I know 50 and 50 only make 100, but the reason it was so low was because it's in such a bad shape. So I've got $50,000 to purchase, $50,000 in the renovation, but now it's appraising at $200,000. You think, oh, you can refinance that house based off of $200,000. That's what it's worth now. You can't. You have to wait a year. Banks, they say it's seasoned.
Sure.
You have to wait for seasoning.
But if you put her maiden name on there.
But if I sell it to you, you get around seasoning because you're buying the house from me and your bank isn't refinancing it. They're doing a purchase. Purchase is different from refi. So I would buy a house for $50,000, fix it up, sell it to her for $250,000, $300,000, whatever. For like apartment buildings. And we were doing this to acquire apartment buildings. I think in 1 year we acquired 54 apartment buildings.
And she would use her real first name?
No, it's all real. It's her first name, her maiden name.
And no one figured that out?
Do you mean a bank in California?
I guess, yeah, that's true.
They don't know that I'm married to this person. And keep in mind, I'm not doing the loan. I'm just a seller. So I took those loans, and those loans, she would get a loan from a broker that used to work for me named Gretchen Zayas. So Gretchen and Pete Zayas, they owned a mortgage company. And so my ex-wife is getting loans from them to buy houses from me. No big deal. We're making the payments. I mean, it's all fraud, but we're making the payments. So she's buying them from me, and we're making $50,000 or $100,000 on every purchase. So that's how we're making, and we're renting them out and we're keeping them, right? Or we're selling them, reselling them again. But she shouldn't have been able to obtain the loan. So it's fraud. To me, it's not a big deal. It was to the FBI. So what ended up happening was Gretchen and Pete got busted. They were running a straw man scam where they were having people buy houses and then letting them go into foreclosure. It's called a straw man. It's a kind of a person.
How does that make them money?
Well, because
they get to write the loan.
They get to do the loan, and then of course they also get to if the houses. But they weren't purchasing the houses. But basically, they had investors who were buying houses for like $400,000, but they knew they could appraise them at $600,000 or $700,000, and so they would charge the investor like $20,000 and $30,000 just for the loan. The guy would buy the house, make a few payments, let him go into foreclosure. That's what he was supposed to do. Instead, he bought.
Then someone has to cover. Got it.
Right.
So you get paid out. You basically make money on collecting from the first few loans, and then the default is not on you.
Right. It's on the person who bought it. But let's face it, if I told you, look, I need you to sign for these 4 houses, you're going to make $300,000. Those houses are going to go into foreclosure. You're going to have 3 foreclosures on your record, but you're going to get $300,000. Will you do it? 99% of the people watching would be like, you're going to give me $300,000, and there's going to be 3 houses that are going to foreclose. And so basically I have 3 foreclosures on my credit, and I can turn around and claim bankruptcy. Yes, I'll do it. You give me $300,000 right now, I'll claim bankruptcy.
Got it. So the people who you would convince to do this, how did you find buyers? You just went around to people like, hey, you want to take a loan and make some money, and then
No. Remember, I was taught. You asked me what a straw man scam was.
Yeah.
And I said these people were running a straw man scam. That Pete and Gretchen were running a straw man scam. That's how they got in trouble. They were doing the loans for a guy that was going out finding people to buy houses from him.
So that guy would find them.
Right. They weren't in part of that. They would then get the loans. Now the loans were fake. They were frauding up the loans. They were making W-2s and pay stubs to make sure this guy could get the loans. And what happened was they didn't even end up making like the first payment. So there was like a first payment default, right? So they were just stupid. You have to make a few payments. But instead, there's what's called a first payment default. Well, if you're Bank of America and you lent this guy $800,000 and he looks perfect on paper and then he never makes a payment,
you're like, this sums up.
You're going to look into it.
Yeah. So they got looked into.
Of course, they got looked into, and then they contacted the FBI because now nobody's going to paying them back. They're all just ignoring them. Like it's okay. Like, oh, we can do this. And they now know it's fraud. They look into it. W-2s are fake. All these things that we had cleared initially once we looked into it. Like they weren't that good. You know what I'm saying? So they ended up And the way Gretchen would do fraud is like she would go and try and get somebody to kind of convince somebody to cover this or cover that. Like she wasn't a document person. Like she wasn't handling all that herself. So when they start to get phone calls from the FBI, they unravel immediately. People give her up immediately. So they come into her office and they raid her. When they raid her office, she had come to me and said, look, my office, or she came to me and said, look, the FBI's asking questions. I didn't know her office had been raided. She just came to me and said, look, they're asking questions. We need to hire an attorney. I said, okay. She goes, can you do me a favor and refinance my house? And she said, I can't do it here by myself. And I said, no problem, because we're friends.
And you had been, I just want to make sure I understood this. You had been doing this business with her now, too.
She had, right, remember?
You had been writing the loans.
She'd been brokering all the loans for my wife at the time. So, and she used to work for me. So,
you got a piece.
Huh?
You were getting a piece of something.
No, I'm not getting a piece of anything. I'm selling my properties I'm buying, selling them to my ex-wife. So we're pulling money out of the property and we're acquiring rental properties. The problem is when she got busted, she starts working with the FBI. And not initially. Initially, she just went to get an attorney. So she came to me and asked me, Matt, will you refinance my house, which really didn't have any equity in it. She said, can you refinance my house? I have to pay my attorney like $75,000. I said, sure, I can get that done. Like I can take care of that for you. So I get an appraiser to jack up the appraisal. She gives me fake W-2s and pay stubs. So she made those.
With talking to the FBI.
Yeah. She gave those to me. And keep in mind, I'm now doing a loan for her.
And you knew that. You knew the FBI was talking with her.
I knew she'd been busted. But she's a friend of mine. We went to each other. We went to parties together. We went on vacation together.
The FBI is talking to her.
Well, no, we don't know that. I don't know that she's talking to them. She's just trying to negotiate a deal. Like she's not cooperating.
But you didn't assume that?
No, I didn't because
our lights would have been up. Like, oh, okay.
I'd seen The Godfather. You don't cooperate. We're gangsters, bro. So we're not. I know she's not going to give me up. So I refinance her house. I get her $75,000. She goes out and she hires an attorney. She gives him $75,000, and the first thing he says is, "You need to wear a wire and get this guy who just refinanced your house, and you need to cooperate with them, and I can get you no jail time." Like, if you cooperate with them and get this guy, because she now goes to the FBI and she goes, this guy, everybody in his office is committing fraud. And I can get him to cooperate because I just did $500,000 worth of loans for him and his ex-wife, and his wife, my wife at the time.
So she offered you up on a platter, too, for them.
So she called me up.
Who were you going to cooperate on?
Oh, she thought I would cooperate on my entire staff. They're all committing fraud. So she contacts me and says, "Hey, listen, oh my God, Matt, the FBI raided my office." What? She's like, "Yeah, I can't believe it. This was a few days ago, and now they're asking all kinds of questions. Look, can I meet you?" And I go, "Yeah, meet me. Meet me at the pizza place down the street." So we go and we meet.
This is what, 02?
This is 01. This is 2001. Okay. Yeah, bro. That's why I was saying we got to get moving. Yeah. Like, I know you're curious, but if you don't want to fly me up here again,
we'll get.
My
through
girlfriend
this
said I have to be back tonight. She didn't trust me.
Trust me. We'll get to it. Keep going. You're doing great.
So what she says is, this may be your longest one ever if you keep this up. So here's what happens. So here's what happens. I go and I meet Gretchen and Pete. So I meet them, and we're eating pizza. And we're sitting there. Turns out the FBI officer was sitting right there. So I said, what's going on? She goes, okay, here's what's happening. They this. And they're asking all kinds of questions about Kayla, which is my ex-wife, which was my wife at the time. And I went, because all the loans had been done in her name,
right?
Not mine. So I'm not really in trouble.
She might be in trouble.
She's in trouble. Yeah. And I went, oh my God. You didn't tell them the W-2s were fake, did you? You didn't tell them the pay stubs were fake. You didn't tell them that I own the property. You didn't tell them you know me. You didn't tell them that that we didn't have the money. You didn't tell them that it was a.
There's 3 guys in a van outside going, jackpot.
God, I mean, and as I'm sitting there, I'm going, and I said, okay, wait, let's think about this. I said, you need to tell them that you never met her. She called you on the phone, that the documents were faxed in or mailed in, And so I'm trying to come up.
You're telling her how to do it.
I'm telling her how to get to a point. And I said, once you do that, you could say, I never met her. So you can't testify that you ever met her. Everything was over the phone. And that way, I'll have Kayla not answer their questions. I won't answer their questions. They're not going to indict us if you're saying, I got all everything over the phone. I never met these people. I can't testify that I met these people. So at that point, the whole thing should just go away, because the truth is they really need to talk to people. They need people to cooperate.
Sure, yeah,
and
that's how they build the case.
Right. So and I know that they're not going to be able to get anything from her employer because I'm her employer. They're not going to get it. Like, all these are cell phones and stuff. Like, there's a whole thing. I can just
You're
throw
giving
everything
them
away.
the whole plan. You got everything.
So as I'm going through the whole thing, she says, Matt, we can't lie to the FBI. And I look at her and I go, what are you talking about? I go, you're lying to them now. She goes, how? I go, you just gave me, I just refinanced your house with fake W-2s and pay stubs. The whole thing's fake. And her husband stands up. Pete stands up and he goes, we've never lied to the FBI. We may not have told them everything, but we never lied. And I looked at him like, the fuck are you doing, bro?
He was acting.
And I'm like, who are you telling this to? Like, I know that's not true. Who are you saying this for? Like, what you're saying right now, I know is a lie. So you're not saying it for my benefit. So
Does your spine just go cold?
Oh, immediately I think, oh, wow. And I realize, like, both their cell phones are, like, right here. You know, like, everything is right next to me. And I'm like, oh, my God.
They got me.
And I look at her and I go, wow, I hope you're going to get something for this. And she starts crying. She goes, Matt, I have a daughter. And I go, I don't have a son? And she goes, and I said, look, tell the FBI not to come into my office. Call me on the phone. I'll come down and talk to them. And she goes, okay. Because when the FBI came in her office,
I would have leaned in and pulled her shirt and gone like that and said it right in the mic.
Yeah, well, I'm not that cocky. So, she, because when the FBI raided her office, everybody quit. She had like 5 or 6 people working there. They all quit.
Yeah, but then.
So I knew my guys will all quit. I don't want them walking in here. So I leave.
Oh, you were still thinking about saving the business.
I'm still thinking I can get around this somehow. So I go in, the FBI call, like, literally, we're talking about 30 minutes later, I get a phone call. My secretary walks in, she goes, Agent Scott Gale from the FBI is on the phone. And she looked at me and I go, okay. I go, leave and shut the door. Don't say a fucking thing. And she goes, okay. I answer the phone. I go, hey, what's up? He goes, I need you to come down. He said, I think you know what this is about. I said, yes, I do. I said, okay, I can come down on Tuesday. And this was like a Thursday or something. And he's like, okay, I guess so. Tuesday will be fine. I said,
he
okay.
took that.
Well, yeah. What can he do? He really can't do anything. I'm not indicted. And he doesn't, what does he have on me yet? Not much.
I mean, he has you going through the entire plot on tape.
Yeah, but this isn't the local cops. They don't arrest you right away. They indict you. They get a whole case. They come and grab you after you're just done.
Yeah, but they can turn around, because they change the indictments, obviously, after they do it. They'll update that all day, but they can turn that around right away just to get it done. They do that a lot.
I mean, I'm just telling you what happened.
Gotcha.
I get it.
All right. So on your end, it didn't happen.
Yeah, that's what you're right. So I said, I'll come down. I want to give myself some time. I got to get a lawyer. So I don't tell him that. I just say, yeah, I'll come down. But listen, man, I'm fucking booked. Like, I can't come down, tomorrow. I can't come down Monday. Like, can we do it Tuesday? Yeah, Tuesday morning. Yeah, no problem. Hang up the phone. So I end up going to a bunch of attorneys. All of them are like, oh yeah, you're done. Like I know, like they all know the FBI officer, they know the U.S. attorney. They're like, yeah, I called them before you came here. Yeah, you apparently you have there's 2 people that wore a wire on you. And like they know the whole thing. They're like,
they had that info.
Yeah, they're like, you're done. They're like, based on what they just told me they have on you, you're done. So I end up getting an attorney, $75,000. Same thing, $75,000. That's the going rate. I give him $75,000, and he says, listen, I can keep you from getting indicted.
Now, how much? I'm just curious. Side note: how much money do you have in the bank at this point? You've been doing it for a few years. Like, are you a wealthy man?
The problem is, I've got probably a couple $1 million worth of real estate, and I probably have access to maybe, whatever. $100,000, okay. But a lot of it's just now it's tied up in real estate. Like
because you're making these deals.
So I'm flipping 2 properties. So what do? You borrow. Sometimes you borrow from hard money guys, but you get to a point where you're like, I'll just use my own money to renovate it. Like you can borrow from the hard money guys, but it's just that much more interest. So it's like, it's out there. But I got $75,000. I give him $75,000. So I give him the $75,000, and he says, I can keep you from getting indicted.
Oh, now he can keep you from getting indicted.
No, he could before. He said it. Give me
I thought
75.
they were saying you're fucked.
No, they're saying you're guilty and they have you, but I can keep you from being indicted. Here's what you do.
Explain.
Okay. So I give him the 75 grand. He goes, here's what you're going to do. You haven't been indicted yet. Your wife hasn't been indicted. I can, first it was, how close are you with your wife? And I was like, why? He's like, you can go in and just testify against your wife. They'll indict her and you cannot be indicted. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
So he says, okay, I can keep both of you from being indicted if you cooperate. I go, but not against my wife. He's like, right. You go get the most egregious fraudulent files from some of your brokers that work for you because they're under the impression that you're running a mill that's kicking out bad mortgages. I go, okay. And he said, so go grab some of the most egregious loans from 3 or 4 of your brokers. You bring those to the FBI. You explain that they're fraudulent. You might have to wear a wire, and they'll indict them. It's called pretrial intervention. He said, you pay back any money. You agree to pay back any money that these lenders have lost. Here's the thing. They had like 4 loans, right? But two or three of those loans we'd already sold. Keep in mind, this is
So it's
they had
already on another balance
right.
sheet.
So it's like there's no money, and no money was lost. Remember, I wasn't doing it to rip the banks off. I was just trying to get around seasoning. I'm just flipping properties. I'm running a mortgage company. I flip properties on the side. So I'm thinking, I only got one more property, and I'm going to have that sold within a month. So there'll be nothing I don't owe anything.
And
So-
these aren't the most agreed. Again, this is the lower part of the fraud.
This isn't
is
real.
not the really, really.
Oh no, this is
stuff.
that's later. That comes out of this is what happens.
Okay.
So what ends up happening is I say, look, I'm not going to do that. And he's like, what do you mean? So I'm not going to cooperate. I'm not going to wear a wire. I'm not going to do the same thing that Gretchen and Pete just did to me. I'm going to do to them. And he's like, well, if you don't want to go to prison, and I went. He's like, Matt, you need to think about your family. You need to think about it. I said, well, how is it that they can send me to prison when there's no dollar loss? Like, nobody's lost any money. And I explained to him that some of these loans don't even exist, and I'm currently in the process of selling the fourth loan, the fourth property. So there will be. He's like, oh no, they feel like there's $500,000. Who knows what Gretchen and Pete said was lost? Like, who knows?
Yeah.
They may have said this guy's got a huge case, but the truth is, I'm saying I've lost no money. He's like, well, there's potential loss. I said, okay. Well, and I remember he had the book, the federal sentencing guidelines, and I read through it, and I said, yeah, but look, potential loss is if there was potential loss, and I explained to him how I was doing it, and as a result of that, there at no time did they ever lend more money than was covered by the actual property. So let's say a property is worth $300,000 and the bank lends $250,000. Was there potential loss there? They can always sell the property. Now, if the property was worth $100,000 and I borrowed $200,000, there was $100,000 in potential loss. And I said, that's not what happened. I bought the properties, renovated the properties, so they were worth $200,000 when she bought them for $200,000. And she put down 20%, which was, of course, went straight to me, so that's not a big deal. So she's borrowing, let's say she's borrowing $160. Mm-hmm. She's borrowing $160 on a $200,000 property. There's no potential loss there. And he's like, well, if the FBI agrees with that assessment, he said, then you're right. I can probably get you probation. Mm. So I said, right. So I'm not in a position where I need to. He's like, well, you're going to end up a felon and you're going to lose your business. I'm like, well, then that's what has to happen. But I'm not going to do that.
Wow, you went right to that.
Right. I was a gangster. Now, let me tell you something right now. So if this is on right now, that was the biggest mistake ever. If that had happened now, if I knew then what I know now, I would have taken a dolly. I would have gone into our Friday morning meeting. I would have taken a dolly and I would have loaded up every file cabinet into the back of a pickup truck. And I would have given up every single broker. And I would have walked out of the office and said, get an attorney, do the right thing. And I'd have cut every single one of their throats to have not gotten indicted. Because now I know better. But then I'd seen The Godfather and I'd grown up on that whole don't snitch mentality. Don't tell on anybody.
Why would you snitch on them?
The street code.
Snitch on them because they would just snitch on you if you didn't?
Because they all rolled over on me.
Right.
And everybody rolls over on everybody. And every gangster out there, like for every one guy out there that, for every John Gotti that didn't talk, there's 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 that did talk.
Yeah.
So John Gotti's a gangster. John Gotti died in prison. Do you see what I mean? Like, I'm sorry, but no, I'm not going to die in prison. Like, my loyalty should have been to my wife and my child. That should have been my loyalty. And those people that were committing fraud were criminals, and they didn't deserve my loyalty. So,
and you're also doing it too. So you're like,
absolutely.
So I wouldn't deserve theirs if the shoe were on the other foot, you're saying.
You know what Gretchen and Pete did? The right thing. I don't hate Gretchen and Pete. I'd say I'd have dinner with them to this day. As a matter of fact, several of the people that cooperated on my case, I talk to all the time. I talk to Allison Arnold all the time. I've talked to Becky Hauk. I've talked to Eric Tamargo. I've talked to all the people that cooperated against me. Totally cool. They did the right thing.
Wow.
I remember somebody.
Yeah, you have a really interesting view on. You have a very
because it's
30,000 foot in the air view on this.
Because after that much time, you realize like what do you do? Do you know how many guys I know that did the right thing? Right? Like they honored the code and they didn't tell on these two guys and they went to prison. And then when those two guys got popped, they told on this guy and this guy ended up getting another 12 years. So you could have not done, you got 10 years. You could have gotten 5 if you told on these guys.
Right.
You didn't. So you're sitting in prison doing 10 years. They then get busted. They cooperate against you. You get another 12. Now they get 12. Now you're doing 22 years. Those two guys within 4 or 5 years are back out of prison.
And they're every bit as guilty.
Right. You thought, oh, I need to be loyal to who? A couple of scumbags living off of society? Like, nobody owes me loyalty. Nobody. You're a criminal. You don't have nothing coming. Now, that's different. To me, that's different than me not knowing anything. Like, if you were an innocent person, for me to cooperate against you, well, that's fucked up. This guy didn't do anything. But
that's different. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just saying in general, and everybody be like, oh, this guy's a snitch and this guy's this, man. Fuck you. You go do the fucking time. So, I don't tell you how to do your job at Walmart. Don't tell me how to be a gangster. So anyway, had things been different, I probably would have kept the mortgage company. So, and I would have obviously had to get some more brokers. So what ends up happening is I say, no, I'll just take the plea. So I take the plea. I plead, and the FBI, of course, they come back and they go, damn, there is no dollar loss. And Cox will not cooperate against these people. And I said, I will take the 3 years, but you don't get to indict my wife.
3-year probation.
Probation.
Right. Not even prison.
Right. So I get 3 years probation.
What did that consist of? Like
that probation was
service, stuff like that?
Compared to my probation now, that was such a cakewalk.
Like, what'd you have to do? Back
then, it was probation. You have to fill out a monthly report saying, I've been good, I haven't been arrested. I owed $1,000 fine, $1,000 fine, which I paid. What else did I do? They came by my house a couple of times, say hi. They didn't bother me at all. Like it was a joke. The probation was a joke.
Wow.
Compared to the probation I have now.
Right.
My probation now was the highest custody level or highest recidivism rate. It was for the first year I had to go once a week. I had to spend an hour with a psychiatrist. I had to take a program. I had to pee in a couple times. My probation officer was all over me. I'm showing him my bank statements every month. I'm filling out financial reports. I mean, they were all over me. Of course, the reason, and for good reason, because while I was on probation for that 3 years, as soon as I got probation, right, like the judge was like, look, you're getting 3 years probation. You're getting a slap on the wrist. But, you can't run your mortgage company anymore.
So you're a convicted felon.
You're a convicted felon. I can't be a mortgage broker. I can't own this company. And of course, the FBI knows that there's fraud. These guys are committing fraud, but I won't help get to them. So they're saying to me, you can't run that place anymore. So I end up selling it to a guy who's a CPA, a friend of mine who's a CPA. His name was Dave Walker. And he paid me like $8,000 a month to help him like manage the,
Backdoor kind of a little bit.
Well, no, I wasn't running it.
You weren't running it, but I'm saying like at least you still had.
Well, he didn't have
income.
Yeah, but he didn't have the money to pay me, so he can't give me. It's worth at least $500,000. He can't pay me that.
And he's got leverage on you because you got to unload it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he did me a favor. So really, he's paying me, and I needed the income. And while he was paying me and maintaining my lifestyle, I'm in the process of getting a divorce. So I lose everything during the divorce.
Did you? So after you got arrested, you and your wife were just done.
Yeah, we were done. In general, she got pregnant. She got pregnant. We got married. Right. We didn't really know each other that well. She very much wanted a guy that I'm not. The guy she's with right now is
the Marine.
The Marine. Well, he's an ex-Marine now. He is very much the guy she wanted. He's 6 foot tall. He's in, although I'm in good shape, he's in amazing shape. He's a macho guy. He's a tough guy. He's a family man. He's a guy that goes to work and works 50, 60 hours a week. He dotes on her. He's everything that I'm not. He's perfect for her. And I'm not that person,
What person are you?
I mean, I cut up a lot and I goof around, I goof off, and I'm silly. And although she finds that to be funny,
not as often.
Yeah. And I'm not the guy that I don't teach, Little League, and I'm not going to go to the games, and I don't really know sports, and I'm not a macho guy. And at that time, I wasn't a good husband. I didn't want to be married. I'm sleeping around. I'm having sex with different, chicks that are coming in, the office I'm meeting. And whether she ever caught me red-handed or not, women sense that. They know that.
Yeah.
I've known every time every chick's ever cheated on me before. I felt it. Even when I couldn't tell, I felt it. And may have been a month later when she said, "Look, I met somebody." I'm like, "Yeah," I'm thinking, "Yeah, 5 weeks ago."
I knew.
Yeah. I've felt it. Like, And so when women do that, and she did that all the time, and I'm saying, doing the typical guy thing, "You're crazy. You're nuts. That's nuts." Truth is, I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, what did I do? It's just intuition.
Yeah.
So, just being a scumbag, I'm 29, about 30, 29, 30 years old. And I'm being, I guess by that point I'm like 31 years old, and I got a bunch of money. I got a dozen people saying, Matt, hey, can you help me? Matt, hey, can you look at this? Matt, I'm calling the shots. I've got a ton of money. I've got a great car. I'm in decent shape. So.
And then even after all this shit, you still have the real estate. You paid $1,000 fine and $75,000 to a lawyer.
Right.
You're okay.
I'm okay. So, but the problem is I don't really have that much of an income. I lost everything. And
this guy supplements a little bit of it.
A little bit of it, but I'm spending a lot of money. I have to buy another house. I have to renovate that house. I start buying real estate again. She got
paying child support.
A couple $1,000 a month in child support. For a kid that was he was like this tall. I mean, there's just no way he doesn't need that much. I've been in the house. I know. But it was a lot. So anyway, what happens is,
if you are looking to search the web privately and not have all these websites track you when you leave, check out my friends over at Privado VPN. Privado is the VPN company that gives you full privacy while not losing you any speed, and it allows you to use the product on up to 10 different devices at a time. You got a laptop, you got a tablet, you got a phone, whatever, you can use it everywhere at all times. So hit that link in my description for Privado, and you will go to my landing page with the company, and you will see a plan there for $4.99 a month. It's the same one I use. You're going to love it, so check it out.
I basically tell my buddy, is Dave, who bought the mortgage company, I say, "Listen, man, I'm going to go ahead and let's start like a development company. Let's start flipping properties or something." And he's like, "Okay, well, where are we going to get the money from?" And I was like, so I've been thinking about this. I said, "So what I'm thinking is I'm thinking about flipping properties." And he goes, "Okay." I go, "To get the money." He's like, "All right, well, how much is that?" I'm like, "Well, the problem with flipping properties in those areas is, one, it's the clients. People that buy in the Ybor City area, it's a low income area. So people that are buying these houses for 150 or 100 to 150,000, or let's say they're buying for 100. So people that are buying these houses for $100,000, in this area typically aren't good borrowers. They have problems. Like they'll quit their job. They've had 4 jobs in 2 years or 5 jobs, whatever.
So it's going to be hard to clear loans.
Yeah. So it's getting them the mortgages. I'm like, so basically, you don't have to basically commit fraud. And he's like, all right. So he understood what I was already, who I was. He was already a shiesty guy. He's always been a shiesty guy.
But you went right. You didn't even think twice. You just went right back to that.
Like, that's
what we're going to have to do.
Yeah. That's just what. Yeah. That's how it is. So
did you think because you were now removed from it that meant you weren't going to have any problem getting away with it?
No, I thought I had a foolproof plan.
Oh,
I got a foolproof.
And what was that?
Well, eliminating all of these people so my plan was create a fraud where you're committing fraud where nobody knows a fraud's been committed.
Oh, so fix the last time.
Yeah,
basically.
Fix the last time. Do everything yourself, and basically create a situation where basically everything's fraudulent, and even the banks don't know they've been defrauded. So what I did was, and you've got nobody to tell on you, really, nobody. So what do you do is so if you're flipping properties, there's multiple problems. One problem is the borrower. Right, so if you use a straw man, like you get somebody with good credit to buy 5 houses and let them go into foreclosure, you saw what happened with Gretchen.
Yeah.
So you can't rely on them, and on top of that, they want something for it. So you got to give them a chunk of money. And I thought, well, how do we do that?
How do you cut out the middleman?
Right. So what you do is you create your own borrowers. So, and what I did was I'd already figured out how to create synthetic identities. I'd met a woman who had gotten divorced. Her credit was ruined during the divorce, and
is this Hauk?
No,
not yet.
No, this is just a borrower. Came in one day.
Oh,
yeah, this was
simple.
This was a year before. A borrower had come in, and she gave me W-2s and pay stubs, and she had perfect credit. I pulled her credit, but then when I looked at the W-2s and pay stubs, I happened to notice that the Social Security number was different than what she gave me. Just happened to notice it. And I was like, what the fuck? So we call her in. I say, look, here's a discrepancy. I said, I looked at your credit. You've got 3-4 years worth of credit. And I was like, this is a discrepancy though. And then your W-2s and pay stubs. And she thought she was like, oh my gosh. I was like, no, we're going to get you the loan. I'm going to change this. But I want to know, whose credit?
Tell me how to do this.
How did you do this? And she said, okay, well, it was kind of an accident. She said, I was married 5 years ago, got a divorce. During the divorce, I got evicted because my husband wasn't helping pay. I had a son. She said, and all my credit cards went bad. So, and I was behind on my electric, everything. I said, okay. She said, so what I did was, because we got divorced, I started using my maiden name. I said, all right. She goes, so my name's changed.
Just like you did with your wife.
Right. Well, she said, the second thing I did was I went to go get another apartment, but I knew that I owed for water and electric. And so my friend told me, you should use your son's Social Security number. I know a girl who's done that before. So I used my maiden name, which I hadn't used in 10 or 12 years. She goes, I used my maiden name and my son's Social Security number and my date of birth. So now she goes, and I pulled when they pulled my credit, they pulled it on the new apartment complex, which the new address wasn't associated with the old credit. The new Social Security number wasn't associated with the old credit, and the name wasn't associated. The only thing that was the same was her first name and her date of birth.
But they couldn't see that the SS number was for a child?
You can see that the Social Security number has been issued within the last 5 years.
So that would be a child.
Well, you would be shocked how many times you pull someone's credit report and it says fraud alert, and you just ignore it. The reason you ignore it is, my name's Matthew Cox, but I'm also Matt Cox, and I'm also Matthew Cox with 1 T and not 2. And sometimes I'm Bevan Cox, and sometimes I'm Matt B. Cox. Every single one of those is a different name in the system, and it says fraud alert, alias. So the fact that the Social Security card said that it's been issued in the last 5 years, keep in mind her son at the time probably was, let's say he was 9. So it may not have even said that. I've gone into banks, given them.
So 5 years is kind of.
I've gone in with Social Security numbers that have been issued a month ago, 2 months ago, and they've been like, "Gee, that's weird." Says it was issued within like the last year, and I'm like, "Really?" I'm like, they're like, yeah.
I'm 40.
I'm like, really? They're like, yeah. And then I go, that's strange. Oh, I have my W-2 from 2 years ago. Same social. They go,
wow.
That is weird. Oh, well. They just keep going. So what happened is she did that, and she goes, so what happened was once I got in the new apartment, I started getting pre-approved credit cards. So I filled out one of the credit cards. She goes, and I got it. She said, then maybe a couple months later, or 6 months, or a few years later, I ended up getting, like a year later or something. She goes, I ended up getting a pre-approved auto loan. She goes, so I went in and I got a new car under the new SOCH. She goes, she knew that all these pre-approvals were with the new SOCH because it was a new address. And she knew it was a new address. Nobody at the old one had it because she just walked away. And she knew the only place she had gone to was she'd applied for water and electric. So she knew they'd sold her information and got the pre-approvals, filled them out, got them. Now she said, so I realized I'd created like a whole new identity. And I was like, definitely getting you a loan. Fuck, I wanted to give her a discount. So what I did was
she just told you all this because she thought like you had her dead to rights or something, and she was trying to let you in.
Yeah, right. And we got her a loan. So what ended up happening was first I tried it with a bunch of, keep in mind I have tons of 1040s that are in the file cabinets with kids' social security numbers on them because people use their children for a tax deduction. I have 3 kids, tax deduction. Here's their socials. Great. So I've got those socials. Also, we get kids with Social Security disability. I've got their Social Security numbers. So I go and I start pulling kids that are 5 years old, 7 years old, too, and pulling their credit, but making up different names. So what happened first, I pulled one, and it came up, and I said, of course, I'm saying the kid's like 32 years old. 32 years old, this, and it comes up, and it says, and of course, it says there's no credit profile found. So I was like, okay, I don't like that. That means they couldn't find anything. And I thought they couldn't find anything because the first time they've heard of them. So then I went, next guy, I take the information and I go and I apply online for several credit cards. First, they get denied, of course. But then when I go and I pull his credit directly from the credit bureaus, now it says all the information's correct because they've heard of him 20 minutes earlier. They've now heard of him and they have 3 inquiries from 3 different credit card companies. So they know this person exists. And so when I pull it, they're like, yeah, there's a credit profile. He doesn't have any credit, but he does exist, even though he doesn't exist. Like I used a different name.
So now if you're the one on the other end saying, are we going to give you the loan or not, you get to make the call.
Right. Well, I'm not doing that. What I decide to do is I decide to start now I understand how to make a fake credit profile. So eventually what happens is I go into Social Security. And I explain all this in the book. Like it's more. I really explain what I did was.
But what's the name of your book for people out there?
Shark in the Housing Pool, and there's audio version. And
you can get it on Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon.
It's out there.
So what ends up happening is I explain a little bit more in detail. But the bottom line is what I do is I end up calling Social Security over and over and over again until I eventually figure out that if you have a kid that's under the age of 12 and you don't need to bring your child, because if you have like a 3-year-old and you call up and say he doesn't have a Social Security number, because they'll say, was he born in a hospital? And
how would that happen?
Well, a midwife. So if your child was born with a midwife, then the pediatrician should have issued a Social Security number, but they don't always do it. So what happens is I made several calls until I just kept changing the scenario until finally somebody said, you have to bring in your son. And I was like, well, my son is in Brazil with his mother. And they were like, well, she goes, well, shoot, I'm sorry. If the child's more than 12 months old, you have to bring him in. Hang up the phone, call back. I must call 10 times. So I call back, hey, my son, he's 10 months old. He's this, in Brazil, born with midwife, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't have a Social Security number. And they go, oh, okay. Well, then you need to come in. We don't need your son to come. Just you need to come in with a shot record, with his birth certificate and a shot record.
Boom.
So I make a birth certificate.
How easy is that to make?
Fine arts degree. It's not that difficult. I mean, you need an embossed, a seal that says like, Hillsborough County Vital Statistic Records and that sort of thing. You need those things, which I figured out how to get.
How'd you get them?
Well, I mean, I altered the name because they won't. If you go to these places that print them, they won't give them to you because they say, no, that's a government body. We can't make it. Right. So I altered the name. Instead of saying like Office of Vital Statistics, I said like, Department of Virtual Records. And instead of like the state of, I put like, incorporated in the state of Florida. And so I just altered the names a little bit. And that way then I would chip off parts of the letters, and then I would take 220 grit sandpaper and do it over and over and over to wear them down. And that way when I do the embossment, you still can see kind of what it says. It looks like the stamp, and they really just feel it. So there was also things like
they wouldn't notice the text differences when you handed it to them.
No, they can't see it. It's embossed, so they can't. They'd have to really, even if they did, they couldn't really read it. Usually, you notice if you hand it
enough. Wow.
If you hand in documents, they grab it and they go, okay. Yeah. They just feel it. And then the other thing, it had to be on that copy, void if copied paper. So I had to order like a huge ream of that paper. So I get this huge ream of that paper. Now
where did you learn that? Like, obviously you have a fine arts degree, so you could pull it off. But where did you learn, like, this is what they look for, this is how it's done? Because it's not like you did that
I just had to get my birth certificate and look at it and say, how do I make something that looks just like this? And
just intuitive.
Here's the seal. Here's this. Wow. I need paper like this. How do I get that? I go online. I actually called a bunch of places. They said, we don't sell it individually. You have to buy you have to buy like 300 sheets. Done.
Easy.
So anyway, I end up getting.
So you make these things, yeah.
I make them. I go into the Social Security, and I say, hey, my
10-month-old in Brazil with the midwife mom.
Yeah, it was a girl. It's funny because the first time I did it, I had a girl that I did it with, and I said, I said, look, I need a Social Security number, and I knew they were going to raise the question, where's the mom? Like, what if they ask me where the mother is? Like, I go through things. I don't know if you do this. I tend to have conversations. If I know I'm having a conversation with you, I tend to have it over and over and over again. I come up with all the rebuttals. Like, my girlfriend can't win an argument because by the time we actually sit down to have the argument, I've had it like 80 times. I have every rebuttal. She's done.
True salesman.
Yeah. You just go over and over and over. If they say this, I say this. If they say this, I say this. Well, why would you have done that? Okay, well, here's why I did that. And she just go over and over and over. And so I walked in. She said, okay, well, what do you mean she's never had a Social Security number? I was like, yeah. Her name was Rebecca, the first name of my child, my 10-month-old child. And I said, yeah, she's never had a Social Security number issued. And she goes, that's strange. I said, yeah, well, she was born with a midwife and that. And she goes, okay. She goes, where's the mother? And if for some reason at the last second, I thought, Rebecca doesn't sound like a baby's name. And so at the last second, I thought, as she was talking, I thought, because she said it right away. And my first, was like, where's the mother? And I was like, fuck, Becca, baby. I thought my sister used to call their babies when she was pregnant, like baby T, because their last name was Townsend. So they get baby T. And I thought, so I was like, yeah, I said, I don't know, baby Becca, and I haven't seen her in months. And I hope she's in a drug rehab somewhere, but maybe she's on the street. I really just don't know. And as soon as I go, baby Becca, and I haven't seen her in months, I thought, baby Becca? Where did you get baby Becca? And I went, I started to laugh. And I went like that. And I was like,
She thought you were crying?
She thought I was crying. And I sat there and I was thinking to myself, get a hold of yourself, motherfucker. What are you doing? And I was like, I'm sorry. She's no, I'm sorry. She said, I have to ask. And I said, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead. And she goes, no, it's fine. It's fine. She, hold on. She goes, oh, you're right. She never has had a Social Security number issued. Huh. Okay, hold on. She goes in the back because she said I have to go get somebody. And I thought, oh shit. Like, who's she getting? A cop? Like, they have sheriff. You've been to the DMV. Yeah. This was Social Security.
Sitting there.
I didn't know. So a guy comes back and he goes, oh, yeah. What happened? And I told him. He's like, oh, yeah, that happens. We get a couple of these a month. It happens sometimes. And he goes like this. Yeah, you go to screen 5 here. She's like, yeah, just click this, click, boom. Okay, you got the address? Yeah, okay. Well, yeah.
You're just sitting there like.
I'm like, oh, my God, you're not going to really give me a Social. and they issue me a Social Security number. They mail it 10 days later. There will be one randomly generated and mailed to you. And a week or so later, bam, it comes. Boom. And so I turn around. I immediately go online, get 3 secured credit cards, I'm right back in the DMV like a couple days later. I'm sorry, DMV, the Social Security card number, Social Security Administration, right back, like right away.
Same
Boom, another
office.
one. No, different office.
I was gonna
another
say,
one,
fuck.
another one. You can go in the same one like 2 days in a row.
That would
like
be very dumb.
But there's always seems to be somebody. Every time I would call, it's always somebody else.
Yeah.
So the point is I come back, bam, come back, bam, bam, bam. I'm getting them left and right, and
every time you get them, you open up the cards.
Open
and
up
then
the cards.
The part that you might have cut off on this a little bit ago, but you'd open them up, and then you'd have to build some sort of credit too, because when you had checked it, you'd seen that it at least showed up, but there was no credit score.
I would first apply for a couple credit cards and get denied, but that creates a credit profile. So now the credit bureau,
and that's all you need.
Yeah, well now they've heard of you. So now they're like, okay, I don't want to apply for Bank of America credit card or secured credit card when they've never, this guy's never had his credit pulled.
Right.
Because the first thing they'll say is no record found. I don't want that to happen. No profile found. I don't want them to think, oh, no, you don't even exist. I want them to at least say, oh, yeah, the information's there. He just has no credit.
So that's all you had to do.
That's all I had to do.
Okay.
So I get a secure credit card. I get 3 secured credit cards. I start making the payments. I do that because I know that I'm going to get denied, but at least it creates the profile.
Yes.
But I'm still not going to get a credit card. So then I just say, hey, I'll apply for secured credit cards because I'll give them the $500. So hey, secured credit card, and they go, yeah, we'll give you a secured one. You're going to give us $500.
Yeah.
Here's your $500. And I get Capital One, and I get First Premier Bank, and I get Bank of America, and I start getting all these different ones.
And you start putting payments on there.
Make the payments, keep it below 30%.
What kind of payments? Like your own personal bullshit at the store?
Like I'm buying gas. Like you think if you got 10 or 12 people with 3 credit cards apiece, you've got and I've got plenty of money. I've got money. I'm not using them for credit. I'm just building credit profiles.
Exactly.
So I start naming the guys. Like the first couple of guys were real names, like Alan Duncan, Joel Cologne. But then I saw the movie Reservoir Dogs.
Oh no!
So I start naming,
not Mr. Pink.
No, I did Michael White. I did William Blue. I did James Red. I did Brandon Green. I did what else did I have? Lee Black. So I had black, white, red, green,
oh my God.
Blue.
You're very influenced by movies, I can tell.
I love movies.
Yeah.
So loves Catch Me If You Can. So so it was I always say this. So like I thought I was so clever, but when you're in front of the judge, he doesn't think it's clever that you named all of your fake people red, blue, green.
Thinks it's crazy.
He thinks you're a psychopath.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Is it a joke?
I think at that point, once you're doing something like that, I mean, to say nothing of where this started with one manager being like, oh, we'll wipe that out all the way to this point. Obviously, I mean, the ship has sailed. You are down the slope here.
And I'm just trying to have fun.
That's what I mean. It gets to a point where it's like you're taunting at that point. That's what they hate.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny because when this first happened, like I would have told you, I wasn't taunting, I wasn't, but now, it's like I said, it's ego. So what happens is the second problem with flipping houses, right, is that you have to buy the house cheap and you have to fix it up. Well, I got around that because my fake people, my synthetic identities, they don't care if the inside of the house is done. They don't care if the water's running and the electric. All I need now is I need an appraisal.
And so you have the appraisers.
I have the appraisers. Which doesn't even matter, by the way, because ultimately I end up just ordering the appraisal software, and I just start doing my own appraisals. And that's later, but at this point I have people doing appraisals. You know who used to do a bunch of appraisals for me? Eddie LaFuente, the same guy, same broker.
Same dude.
Yeah, he became an appraiser.
Oh my God! Yeah.
So he started doing it. He came to me and said, "Yeah," and I said, "Okay, well,
Eddie the appraiser now.
Got something for you. You're going to be good at this, Eddie." So. And so I would go in, we wouldn't do anything to the houses. I mean, some of these houses, you'd clean up the whole yard and put everything that you got out of the yard inside the house. You know what I'm saying? Or you just gut the house, like just all the garbage and shit.
Turn this around in a weekend.
Right. You'd clean it all up, trim the tree. So we would have the yard, we'd had a guy that would mow the yard, and we'd trim the trees, and we'd have somebody that paints the outside and cleans it up. So it took some good pictures. Eddie takes pictures of the house and does the appraisal. Well, here's the thing. The other issue is, so we don't have to worry about fixing up the houses as much. I don't have to spend 30 grand fixing up the houses. I can spend 5, maybe 10. That's
and
20.
It's quick. Yeah.
It's quick. The other issue renovating houses is that if you buy a house for $50,000, the problem is, let's say in that area, it's going to appraise at maybe 100, maybe 110. So it's the appraisals. Like my guys, my synthetic identities, they're not going to live there, and they don't care that they're okay with paying $250,000 on a house. They're okay with that. So that's another great thing about making your own people. So what I do is, but how can I get them appraised that high? The other houses in the area are selling for $75,000, maybe $100,000, maybe $105,000, maybe $95,000. So the way appraisals are done is they say, "Hey, I'm selling this house for $200,000." Well, if the other houses in the area are selling for $100,000, the appraiser says, "I'm sorry, the most I can get you is $100,000." So what you need other comparable sales. So I buy these houses for $50,000, and I was dating a chick that worked for a lawyer's title at the time, and I convinced her to basically tell me how to record the sales at a much higher price. So I buy something for $50,000. How can I get it to show up for $200,000? And she explained, okay, you fill out this, you do this, and you pay these extra doc stamps. You pay a little bit of extra taxes, and they'll record it at $200,000 as a sale at $200,000. So Lee Black comes in and he buys a house here for $40,000 and records it at $210,000. He buys one here and he records it at $190,000. He buys one here, $190,000.
And how over what kind of time period are we talking?
Within a few months, all of these guys are buying houses and recording. Within a few months, I've taken Forbes Magazine said that after I've been in that area, that zip code was one of the fastest growing zip codes in the nation. It was one of the top 20 fastest growing zip codes in the nation.
And you really weren't worried about this popping up on data?
It's fine. It's fine. So now here's the great thing. Now Lee Black owns...
I'm surprised you didn't have Quentin Tarantino buying a house.
Lee Black owns this property. He owns over $1 million worth of properties, right? He's worth his 5 properties that he bought they're all worth $250,000.
And he ain't gonna be paying.
Well, he's gonna make some payments.
He's gonna make some, but then he's gonna stop.
Listen, Lee had an accident, okay? So, and that's what you're laughing about that, but that's what happens. What I do is, now he owns these properties, and what I do is I have him refinance the property. He bought it for he got around seasoning. Remember seasoning?
Yeah.
So he bought it for $200,000. He needs to refinance it. We go in. He's got perfect credit. He's got 700 credit scores. He's been on his job for 5 years. He's got all the money. He's got plenty of money in his bank account. Like, they're not even checking his bank account because it's not even a purchase. But they still want to see it for reserves, make sure he has good money. Oh, he does. Look.
Yeah.
They don't even call. If it's for reserves, they don't even make a call.
Like, it looks good.
Yeah, it looks good. Oh, he's got a lot of money. Yeah, he's doing well. So what
when tragedy strikes.
Right. So he goes and he refinances the house, and they lend him $180,000 on a house that he's got $50,000 in, maybe $60,000. So he just made I just made $120,000. So you get $120,000, and so once he gets the 120 on one house, he does it on another one, right? So you borrow about $1 million in each one of these guys' names. You make about $600,000 or $700,000 for each person. Is worth about $700,000, and then they make a few payments, and then you stop paying. Well, then I would stop paying, and then first what would happen is you start getting a few, you get the late payments. You get the late. It's late. Then it's, hey, you're 2 months behind. Then you get a few phone calls, which, to his cell phone.
He had a cell phone too.
He had a cell phone and the office. They call the office. And so they call the office and they leave a message sometimes. And they call the cell phone.
Did you just set up like fake?
I had like half a dozen to a dozen cell phones on my credenza.
And so even the office numbers were cell phones technically.
Oh, no, the office phones were, you ever heard of HQ?
No.
It's their virtual offices. So there's real offices. Like you can get packages delivered there, but you have a secretary and she'll transfer. But the secretary, I don't know her, but you pay and they charge you per minute. And so you pay like $50 a month or $100 a month. And they answer the phone and they say, hi, they say,
Mr. Black's office.
No. He works for them. It's Express Tax Services. Express Tax Services. How may I help you? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm calling for Lee Black. Say, I'm sorry. Mr. Black isn't in the office right now. I can take a message.
He's never here.
I can transfer you to his cell phone if you'd like, or I can take a message. Oh, you can just leave a message. And they leave a message. And then, maybe they'd call or they'd page him. Back when you had pagers or they whatever. But either way, I know he's got a phone call and I call him back and say, hey, this is Lee. What's going on? Who's it?
Oh, it was always you calling back.
It was almost always me. Yeah.
Did you have a different voice on each of these lines?
No, that's not calling the same guy.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, you never know if, like, the same bank or same whoever is going to be calling up Mr. Pink one day and then Mr. Black.
But I do know.
Because you set him up. Yeah, that's true.
So,
that was a brain fart.
So what happens is, usually nobody's calling back. Typically, nobody's calling back because what happens is after about 3 months, I would print an article out of the newspaper. I cut an article out of the Tampa Times where there was like a 12-car pile up and somebody was life flighted, to the hospital. And I retyped the whole thing and I put in the name of my person, of my synthetic identity. Then I print it out on newsprint, cut it out, lay it on a piece of paper, print it again. Now, make a copy of that so it looks like I cut it out of the newspaper. Then I fold it up and I write a letter from his sister saying, look, Lee was in a 12-car pileup. He was life flighted, and I highlight the name. You can see where in the paper where he was life flighted. Life flighted to the hospital. He's in a coma. The doctors say that he may never come out of the coma. If he survives at all, he'll certainly never work again. So by all means, just go ahead and take the house back. I'm so sorry for the problem. And they're practically foreclosing anyway. But I want to give them a reason. I don't want them to look too much into it. I want them to have a reason. If you give them a reason, they typically go away. And that's what would happen. They just stop.
So Forbes said that this was like the fastest growing town or whatever, or county. It also became the fastest growing car wreck tragedy town in America.
The
deaths were insane.
It was. I mean, listen, investing in Ybor City under my reign was detrimental to your health. As a synthetic identity. These guys didn't live prosperous, long lives. So so they would go under. They go under. And of course.
You made your money.
Yeah, and I've got it. And I did this to the tune of, it's like $11.5 million. So what happened, and listen, I got caught multiple times. I got caught by a South Star Bank one time.
And what'd they do?
They called the broker and said that we know that the guy's name was this was a real person that I started, which was it was a synthetic identity, but I used a different name. I used the name Alan Duncan. I'm going to say Alan Duncan. I may have been Joel Colombo. Anyway, I think it was Alan Duncan. So it was Alan Duncan. The other thing too, by the way, is like the credit cards that I would get too. I would get a ton of credit. I'd always end up getting like $50,000 to $80,000 worth of credit cards. Like I had Countrywide down. Countrywide and Bank of America, they were two separate entities then, but they both did the same thing. As soon as you bought something, so if they thought you put down $15,000, almost immediately you got a pre-approval for $15,000. So I know you don't notice this as a regular person, but if you're doing 5 and 6 and 7 of these with this one company, you start noticing, oh, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
So I'm this down payment or this equity or whatever I'm getting all these cards. They think there's $20,000 worth of equity in this house because of the refi. It's worth this much. He refinanced. There's $30,000 or $40,000 in equity. They just they automatically gave me a $20,000 card.
Right.
Perfect. Like, we got to stick with them. That's an extra $20,000. Anyway, one time I got the broker came over and said, hey, listen, this is an issue. They're calling about Alan Duncan. And I had done a loan where some of the money went to the guy that was helping run the development company, because we're building new houses also. We're taking a lot of the money and buying new lots. We had like 100 lots, 100 vacant lots. We're building new houses. So one of the other guys that's helping me, his name's Rudy. Rudy didn't mail the payment in. First payment.
Oh.
Like, you're getting this much money. This is for this. Do me a favor. I'm juggling 40 payments here, 30 payments, my own stuff, his stuff, your stuff, that like it. So can you make the payments on this? I'll give you the money, just make the payments. Yeah, no problem. Like you take this identity over. So he takes the identity over. He's going to make a few payments, come to me in a couple months when we stop paying, and we'll do the thing. Okay. So what happens is he never made the first payment. And so she comes and she said, look, there was a first payment default. They've looked into it. They're saying this guy doesn't exist. I'm like, holy shit. So we drive to the office. I look through the file, and it's, it's detrimental. Like this is one of the ones where like the money went straight from the title company directly into our own accounts. Like there was no even attempt to hide the money trail, where usually I would deposit into their own accounts, and we would then redirect the money to our other accounts. And, so at least it went to their account. Like this money didn't even go to their account. It went like straight to us. So like we had checks issued to us. Like, it was just detrimental. Right. So anyway, I call up the guy, and I'm like, but they're in their infancy of the investigation. So I call up and I say, I call the bank. And I said, hey, this is Alan Duncan. I need to talk to whoever the president of the bank was or whatever, because that was when we called the account executive, and she had said, this is what they're doing right now. The account executive were like spies. So they told us this. So I call up and I said, I need to talk to this guy. And it's like the president of the bank or the lawyer, whoever it was. And they were like, oh, I'm sorry, he's talking to the president of the bank right now. They're having a meeting. Okay, problem. I said, I understand that, but they want to talk to me. Trust me. I think the meeting's about me. I assure you, you need to interrupt him. She goes, well, I'll try. Hold on. She goes, I said, just tell them my name. So they walk in, and I'm like a minute later, they're like, I come on speakerphone, and Mr. Duncan.
Been looking for you.
Yeah, how you doing? I'm like, pretty good. They're like, well, it's odd that you're doing well since you don't really exist. I'm like, really? I said, that is strange. I said, what can I do for you guys? I understand that there's a first payment default. I said, I'm putting the payment in the mail right now. I apologize. Plus, I can put the second payment there. No, we're way past that. Way past that. You're going to love this. So, because you were asking before, this is a good example of this. They said, we've been looking into your file since yesterday, and we've called here, we've called this bank. You don't even have a bank account there. Like they're like I forget what
they did the homework.
Yeah, like you're like they start going into you. This isn't right. And I'm like, I've never been happy with SunTrust Bank. I'm not surprised that they said there's no account. I mean, what am I going to? It's like it's a refi, so I didn't even go through the trouble. Like this, I'm getting sloppy. Right. So they just bury me everything this and then. I'm like kind of like joking about it, like okay, all right. And they're like, oh, by the way, they had the head of fraud department, which was a former FBI agent there. Oh, they had the president of the bank. It was a small. They said it was a bank, but it was really like a lender. Yeah, I'm sure they probably had a bank branch.
But they had that covered.
Right,
and decent guy.
And they had the lawyer. And I'm like, look, this is it. This is it. This is what I said. This isn't that big of a deal. Let me do this. Let me do that. I said, how about I just pay you the money back? Or pay the payments, and they're like, no, we're way past that. Like I'm hoping to try and get them to just sell the loan, and they're like, we're way past that. They're like, listen, we're conducting our investigation, and at some point we're going to give it to the FBI. And they said, I don't know if you know this, but our head of security is a former FBI agent. He's like, yeah, I'm here. He's like, you're going to end up in a, I think he kept saying like an 8x8 cell when this is done. And I was like, okay. I said, listen, you guys, I said. So they were really all over me. And I said, and I started thinking. You
didn't shit yourself.
No, because I kept thinking I'd been in this position a few times before, similar positions. This one was pretty blatant. Like I knew I was kind of fucked. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not scared. I'm scared. But I sat there and I kept thinking, why are they not concerned about the money? Like, it doesn't make sense that I'm offering to give them the money. Like they haven't said, no, you need to refinance it. Like I got caught one time and I refinanced the guy that it was with Washington Mutual. Let me refinance like 3 or 4 loans that they caught was fraud. And they let me refinance it. They even took a loss. You know what a short pay is? They took short pays. They took less than they were owed.
What's a short pay?
It's when you pay them back less than you're owed. They actually took short pays on the loans just to get them off their books. So I was like,
and didn't report anything, obviously.
No. Wow. They were 3 or 4 owner-occupied properties. So you can't owner-occupy 4 dwellings. We closed them all on the same day, and several of them ended up at the same bank because they were different credit lines for different, these correspondent lenders. And
Mr. Pink, Mr. Pink, Mr. Green, Mr. Black.
No, this was a real person. This was actually a real estate agent. Anyway, my point is, I'm talking to these guys, and at some point I realized there's an issue. Like, these guys aren't afraid. So I was like, you guys don't seem concerned about getting your money back. And they went, oh, we'll get our money back when we sell the property. Don't you worry about that. And I thought, oh, they think that their $150,000 or $160,000 loan is attached to a house worth $200,000.
Oh,
and I went, oh, okay. I said, and now I understand.
Have you guys ever looked inside?
Well, what I said was, listen, you understand? I said, here's the problem. I said, do you have the appraisal there? Because think about it, now I have to explain to them why. Like, I can't, I can't scare them. They have an appraisal. And they even have what's called a drive-by appraisal.
I'm just surprised with an ex-FBI agent in the room. You still had this confidence. You think
what do you mean? First of all, they don't really know who they're talking to. But secondly, I'm terrified. I'm not saying I'm not terrified, but it's funny because you're saying the same kind of stuff that the broker and Rudy were saying. Aren't you concerned? Aren't you, like, when I was saying I was going to call, like, oh my God, what's the alternative?
Yeah, you got nothing. No
I'm
outs.
Either about to get fucked up. And listen, I can tell you right now, I'm on federal probation.
Yeah, you're fucked.
Like, this isn't going to end well for me. I have to, trying to fix it doesn't hurt me.
So the psychology is I'm
already
in deep.
Done.
I'm on the turn. I'm going to see the river.
Yes. So I said, look, here's the problem, guys. I said, open the appraisal. They opened the appraisal. Okay. I said, look at comp number 1. Okay, comp number 1 is owned by a guy named James Red. All right. Sold for this much. Right. Comp number 2 is owned by a guy named Brandon Green. Now, keep in mind, you don't really know this. Like, they have to look this up. They're like, okay. Comp number 3 is owned by, a guy named Lee Black. They're looking at it. Right. All right. Well, what are you getting at? Red, green, black. I said, and they go, you're these people? And I was like, they go, oh my God. I said, they said, well, we're still going to get there. I said, no. Let me explain what I've done. I purchased those properties for $40,000 and $50,000 a piece. I record the value of those properties by paying the additional doc stamps on the loans. So they appraised, they showed up at 210, 190, 197, and your property came in at 190. You lent me this much money on a refinance. This is what you owe. But the truth is, I said, your property is worth $40,000. And of course, they believe me because red, green, black. They're like, well, this can't be. And they go, how is this possible? We did a desktop review. Their own appraiser drove by and took pictures outside from the curb. Said, right, the inside of the house it's gutted. It's trashed. I said, but it passed all of your procedures because those sales really are there. And that's really what a desktop review or a drive-by review is.
Yeah.
They also have something called desktop reviews. And they were like, oh my God. I said, you're about to lose $100,000. I said, there's no fraud.
On each of these, right?
Well, it's just one property.
Okay. So
they don't own the other ones.
Got it.
They're just sales in the area. And so the guy goes, so they put the phone down. They put me on hold for a little bit. I listened to some music. They come back and they said, do you still have the money? I said, I can get you the money. And they said, all right, if you can give us the money back, we assure you we will not turn you in. We will not say anything if you promise that and you will never do another loan through our bank. I said, absolutely. I said, I think it'd be stupid for me to do it. You'd easily detect it. And listen, their fiduciary responsibility is to that corporation or the owners or investors of the corporation. Yeah. So what do? They send over the broker a payoff. I go get a cashier's check and I send it to them and they take it. Boom, it's done.
Never again issue.
I got another one of those too, which is 10 times better than that story.
All right, let's hear it.
Well, no, it's in the. I haven't even gone on the run, bro.
That's what I'm waiting for the run because, like, I'm thinking when you started telling the story, I'm like, all right, this is gonna be the one where he goes on the run.
Oh no.
But you got out of it.
Yeah, bro. This goes on and on. Like this is just one of multiple times. I told you I get caught many times. So but I just keep paying them off or doing this or fixing that or fixing that.
And none of these people got in trouble.
No.
They knew all about it.
No. I mean, they knew about it, but, you know, it's not like they're covering up a murder.
They also actively participated. It's not a murder, but it's still like, that's active participation at that point. They knew it. They had it caught. There was a phone call. Everyone in there who needs to be in there hears it. You pay it off. Oh, don't worry. We'll look the other way.
Well, yeah. And I kept going. So, you know, that same person, actually, I think I dumped that person right then because he had a first payment default. And we went and I ran up his credit cards and dumped him. I think he had four or five loans. We stopped paying on all the loans. And then same thing, gave him the article about the pile up a few months later, and that guy was gone. Did the same thing with Joel Cologne, did the same thing with Lee Black, did the same thing with where
got it.
They buy 5 or 6 houses, you get almost $1 million in loans, you pull out $600,000-$700,000, you make some payments, you let it go.
So you're saying you got rid of that guy at other banks too?
Yeah, we stopped paying on everything because I can't borrow any more money in his name because he has a first payment. He has the very first loan. He's got the mortgage showing up with a 30-day late. He never made the first payment.
Right.
Now, granted, it gets paid off, but it doesn't matter. It's 30 days on his credit. His credit just went straight down.
Right. So you just get rid of him.
I got guys waiting in the wings. So that happened, and I guess to cut to going on when I went on the run.
Yeah.
So what ends up happening is I had a girlfriend that I was dating named Allison, and Allison was basically getting a divorce. And you have to think too, like anybody like these, you know, I dated this one chick who, you know, she wants to flip properties. I help her flip properties. Like I'm ready to, you know, I'm doing a lot, but my full-time job essentially is just fraud at this point, managing all these guys, getting credit cards, creating new identities.
How many hours a week are you putting in?
You know, when you love what you do, you know,
you never work a day in your life.
Yeah, I felt like I wasn't working at all. Like it's like, let's try this. Yeah. You know, that worked. That's great. So, but I'd say 50, 60 hours a week. You know, I mean, I'm the kind of guy that, you know, you can call me at 11 o'clock at night.
You're going to answer.
I'm going to answer the phone. Yeah, what's up? Hey, listen, I'm at a bar. I got a guy. He wants to buy a triplex. He's this, he's that. Does he own have a mortgage now? Okay, what's his credit score? I mean, I'm immediately going into qualifying him. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, here's what you do.
And you were making a lot of money. I mean, were you spending the money around a lot?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going on trips to Norway, to England. I'm going to Mexico. I've got a couple of cars. You know, I got a truck. You know, but not like a shitty truck. You know, I got a nice truck. I'm driving an Audi. I'm driving. You know, I got a house. I'm living in a triplex where I've got 2 apartments underneath me, a 4-car garage, and I'm living in a 1-bedroom upstairs that, of course, I designed myself, and it's 2,200 square feet. It's a 2,200 square foot 1-bedroom. So
it's a nice place.
Yeah, it's a nice place. Hardwood floors. You know, I'm dating this chick. You know.
Do you feel successful? Do you feel fulfilled?
Feel great.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a little terrified, but I'm taking a lot of Xanax. It helps you sleep at night. I'm taking Paxil, which is like an anti-anxiety drug, and so you know, it's like a mood, like a stabilizer. So I'm handling the. You know, there were panic attacks, but you know, overall, it was good times. But
was your dad proud of you?
He thought I was. Are you kidding me? He thought I was a huge success. Like, wow, like, you know, you had that one little hiccup with that mortgage thing that you had done, but in his mind, it's like you had filled out you were trying to get around something. It was some paperwork. It was a paperwork thing that you shouldn't have done. That's not a big deal.
So he just kind of shrugged
it off because think about it. I never
convicted felon shrugged it off.
Yeah, shrugged it. What's he gonna do? You know, keep in mind, like my brother worked for me at the time. So my brother, I remember.
Did he ever get in trouble?
No, he wasn't doing anything fraudulent. But like my brother, who was constantly asking my dad for money, stopped doing that. Like when he came to work for me, doing little odds and ends, like changing door. I still have a bunch of apartments. So I have like apartments to manage.
So you gave him some, got it.
Right, little like, and he's charging me ridiculous stuff. Ridiculous fee.
Like, fuck it.
And I'm going to give a fuck. It's my brother. Yeah. And I remember my dad said to me one time, he said, so I know your brother still, he must be doing a lot of work, right? And I said, Yeah, he works when he wants to work. And I said, why? I said, yeah, why do you say that? He said, he doesn't ask me for money anymore. He hasn't asked me for money in like a year.
Must be making a lot.
Yeah. Listen, one Christmas I bought my brother a Harley Davidson. My brother had sold his Harley Davidson to get the down payment for his house, right? For the house that he had lived in with his wife and kids. And then so when I started making money for Christmas one year, I bought him a Harley Davidson, pulled it up right in front of my parents at night, and we'd all gone over there to eat dinner. And then when everybody's opening their presents, he opens up his presents, and there's the Harley Davidson shirt, T-shirt, and a key, like on a keychain with a key. And he looks at it and he goes, and everybody's staring at him because they all know. And he just looks at the thing and he thinks it's just a keychain. There's a key to it. There's just a key. And he's like, oh, thanks, Matt. Thanks. And
you gonna use it?
No, but it was, there was other stuff in it, like Harley Davidson book, and he loves Harley Davidson. And my sister-in-law looks at him and goes, Mark, keep looking. And he goes, what? You just keep looking. And he flips it over, and there's a registry, or not registry, sorry, there's the title. And he looks at it and he goes, what is this? He's holding the key and the registry. It's like, looks and he goes, and everybody's staring at him. There's like 20 people there, like his kids, everything. And he goes, no. He looks over at me, and I was like, we were playing Secret Santa too. I'm like your secret. Like I remember when we all got our stuff.
$50 gifts and a Harley.
Yeah, exactly. I walked around. I was like, who's got Mark? Give me that. I'm like, I got something for him. And so yeah, he gets up and he goes, no. And I walk over and I go, yeah, check this out. We open the door and boom, there's his Harley
goes, right there.
Oh my God. He jumps on the Harley, no helmet. You didn't need you'd added the helmet law back then. Jumped on the Harley, starts it up. I mean, backs it up and takes off. It's pouring rain. My mom goes, if he hurts himself, and I go, I'm sure he'll be fine. I'm sure he'll be fine. I'm thinking, Jesus, like he drove that thing like I'd be terrified. Excited. I mean, it's pouring rain.
Yeah.
And he took off. And you thought, okay, he's going to come back in a minute. It's gone in the like 30 minutes later, he comes back drenched. He's like,
fucking awesome, man.
I can't believe. I'm like, yeah. I'm thinking, jeez, look at yeah. It was cool. That was a cool thing, So
it's family affair, full bet.
Yeah. So I'm buying and selling houses. We're doing stuff. Everything's going great. And this chick I was dating came to me one day. So I have a buddy named Travis. So Travis is a friend of mine that I've known. He's one of those guys I've known since I'm 12, 13 years old, right? And he's not doing well. I'm doing great. He's not doing well. And listen, he drinks, he smokes. He's got an adorable little daughter. And so I'm always kind of helping him a little here, a little there. He's asking for $500 here, $200 here, no big deal. I'm going to pay you back next week. And he gives you $100 on the $300, and then you just say, "Don't worry about it, bro. Don't worry." So he at one point comes to me and says, "I got to make some money. Like, I don't know, can we flip some properties?" But and the truth is, yeah, could we flip properties? Sure, but it's like I don't need you to flip. I'm not really flipping property. So I'm gonna make up this situation so you can make money. So I'm gonna make more work for myself so that you can make a little bit of money. Like, I'd rather just give you the money. You're just causing me more of a headache. So he's like, "Bro, what are you doing? Like, you're doing something fucked up. Like, I mean, you got this going on. I see these properties. Like, what's going on?" And I said, "Oh, well, here's what I'm doing." So I kind of explained.
You told him?
Yeah. And he says, "Can I do something like that? Like, you've been doing this for like a year or so. You're fucking balling. You guys are over a year and change. Like, probably whatever. I don't know how long it would have been. Over a year, though. Not 2 years, though. It's about a year and a half. So actually, you know what? It may have been coming up on 2 years. So what he ends up doing is he says, "Can I do something like that?" And I said, "Yeah, we could do something like that. So if you want, if you're willing to go in the bank and you want to run the whole thing, and yeah, we can do it, because I can't keep doing this here. I need to find someplace else, like Orlando or something, to do it." So he goes to Orlando. He buys a house, and in the name Michael White, and he borrows
more colors.
Yeah, we borrow 3 mortgages on the property. The girl I was dating, and I wasn't really dating, I was sleeping with her, right? Because I'm dating another girl, but we're just sleeping together. So she asked me to do she's a mortgage broker. I have her do this over here. Now, she'd done a couple of the loans, so she knew the people were fake. Mm. So that went over there. So now we got over in Clearwater. So she's doing one in Clearwater. He's doing one here.
In Orlando.
So they have to go in the bank. So I make a fake ID for her. Because they have to actually physically go in the bank here.
Physical fake
real
ID.
Real fake
real
ID. Yeah. But her name was Rosita Perez in the thing, right? But this is a chick who's got like blondish brown hair.
Is this Hauk?
No.
No, you're still not there.
No, I'm getting there.
Okay.
This is why I take off on the run. So what ends up happening is, I'll speed it up. So what ends up happening is her ID that she had, I said, go get you. She goes, I don't look like a Rosita Perez. And I said, go get your hair dyed black and curly. She goes, okay. So she gets it dyed black and curly. And we take the photo of her and I make the ID. So before she does the closing, and she borrows like $300,000 or $400,000. Before she does the closing, she changes her hair back.
Oh no!
But and she was like, "What? It's still me. The picture is me." I'm like, "Yeah, it is you, but I don't know." And she's like, "No, it's me. They're not gonna." What? She goes in the first one, closes, no problem. She gets like $190,000 or something. I forget the exact amount. The next one she goes, and it's the same thing. But when she goes into the next one, they say, "This doesn't look like you," and she goes, "That's me." And the woman, and she's like, "It's me." So look at the picture. And she's like, "Yeah, this doesn't look like you." Calls in somebody else. They're like, she kind of looks like her. And she's like, "That's me." Like, it is her picture. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I didn't think it did. I thought it, but that's what happened. So what they did was they say, look, they close, they have her sign. They say, we're going to make some phone calls before we give you the check. And she's like, okay. And so she comes out, gets a micro. She's like, oh my God. Like, she looks white, pale white. She's like, oh my God.
We're fucked.
This is what just happened. I'm like, oh, fuck, that's done. She's like, okay, well, we have the other checks. I was like, no, we're done. And she's like, no, we can get the other check. I said, absolutely not. She goes, look, let me give you the other check to Travis in Orlando. He can deposit in his bank account. When it clears, we'll get. I said, no, this whole thing is about to unravel. We're never going back to that house. That whole thing is done.
You are just, wow.
So, I mean, we're never going back there. Well, her phone, that's gone. I'm throwing everything out. Like,
but now you're
documents.
Wanted. Huh? Now you're going to be wanted.
They don't know it's me. They know it's her.
I know, but she is. That's what I'm saying. Like, she leaves.
But if you see the picture, like, it's a shitty picture this big. Like, I don't want it or not. That's not going to end up on the news. Like, they didn't give her the money. And I'm saying, if we don't cash the check, the money's still there.
And they might just be like, fuck it.
Well, nobody lost any money.
Yeah.
Who lost any money?
Who wants the headache?
Right. We had rented a house, and I transferred the deed, taken the deed out of the owner's name and put it into Rosita Perez's name. So she's refinancing now. So, nobody's lost anything. Even the owner got like a chunk of money up front. He got like $7,000 or $8,000 up front, and he can just transfer the title back because she doesn't even exist. Like, they're going to figure this out. So I think that's going to be fine. And she just keeps going on and on. No. And I go, and she goes, at least let me talk to Travis. So I go and we talk to Travis, go to my buddy Travis, and Travis goes, I think it'll be fine. And I'm like, I think it's a bad idea. And he goes, give me the check. It'll be fine. So he takes it, and she signs the back of it, deposit in the name of, Michael White. He deposits it. A couple days go by. He gets a phone call from Michael White, gets a phone call from the bank and says, look, I didn't witness you signing the back of the check. He goes, well, I signed it. And he goes, yeah, but it's over $100,000. I have to witness it. That's our bank policy. He goes, okay, I'll come out. So he drives to Orlando. And I call him, happen to call him and say, hey, what's going on with the check? And he goes, yeah, I got a phone call. They want me to come. And they said they couldn't deposit the check into my account because I didn't sign it. Now, keep in mind, I've deposited many checks into my account from other people where I've signed the name James Red, deposit to the order. Nobody's ever said that to me.
So you know something's
wrong. Don't go in the bank. He says, oh, you're shaking like a little girl. Like, I'm like, listen, bro, I'm not fucking around. Don't go in the bank. Don't go in the bank. He's like, I'm already here.
Oh,
what?
No.
He's like, I'm already here. I'm walking in right now. So you're not already there. You're walking in. Like, I'm like, look, there's gonna be cops are waiting for you. He goes, bro, I'm in the parking lot right now. There's no cops.
Oh,
well, they're not going to flood it with sheriff deputies with cruisers. Walks in, says, you're scared. Calm down. What'd you get so scared? Laughing. Click. So
you found your Fredo Corleone.
I call him 20 minutes later. Nobody answers. Call him an hour later. Nobody answers. 30 minutes later. Nobody. I'm calling I'm calling his cell phone. So then
Travis works for the United States of America now.
Well, so then I go to I go to a payphone. They used to have these things called payphones, and you could put like quarters in them.
Yeah.
So we drive and we go to a payphone and we call Michael White's cell phone, and a very official sounding voice answers, "Hello, who's this?"
This is Agent Breslin.
Yeah. This is Lee Black. And I'm like, who's this? And this is Officer so and so with the I'm like, all right, that's it. He's done. He's
burned.
He's arrested. He's done.
And now you're burned.
Well, I can't find him being arrested. So the next day, I get a phone call and he says, look, I get he just calls like, hey, what's up? I'm like, what's up? He's like, look, I was arrested. I need you to call my brother-in-law, get him to get me out of jail. Okay. So I go to him. I said, look, man, here's some money, bail him out. His bail is this much. What I should have known was this. When he was first arrested, his bail was like $300,000, which is basically what he had borrowed. Mm-hmm. And then the next day, it had dropped to like 10 grand.
Yeah.
Well, and if you know anything, first they're saying, so now it's like, whatever the deal was.
Too suspect.
The deal was, yeah. Yeah, it was like, oh, you're never getting out of here. To, oh, you're cooperating? Okay, can you come up with $1,000? Yes. Okay, drop it to $10,000. So I give them the money. They get him out of jail. He gets out of jail. He comes to me. He says, look, I told them that I'd pay him the money back. I told him this. I told him that. Can you get me a lawyer? I said, yeah, I can get your lawyer. I get him a lawyer in Orlando.
Were you worried he was wired up?
No, I wasn't worried he was wired up. I remember when he came in, I was like, bro, man. I said, how are you doing, bro? I said, man, come here. And I gave him a hug. And he goes, oh,
no, there's nothing there.
He goes, oh, you motherfucker. I said, no, I'm just saying, how you doing?
Been here before.
Yeah. And he looked at me, he's like, I would never, bro. He's like, look, I told him I'd pay him the money back. I told him that they said they thought I was working with somebody else. I told him that I wasn't, Okay. So I get him a lawyer. I think the lawyer was not much, 15 grand.
You got him a cheapie.
Well, it wasn't federal. It was just local.
Okay.
So gave him like 15 grand. And then I remember he kept coming by like, hey, I can't do this anymore. I'm like, I get it. And he goes, so, and he was like, look, my lawyer's saying that I probably won't even go to jail. Like I can probably just pay the money back. Because most of the money was still in the bank. He was going and getting out like $8,000, $5,000.
Oh, so they hadn't even gotten that.
He had only gotten out maybe 50 grand. So he's like, look, like the one, but the big problem was it was linked to the other person. Remember the check he deposited was connected to another fraud.
The one that the Anita whatever.
Yes, which also no money was gone. So very little money had been taken out of the account.
But so she did take those two mortgages that got through.
Took them out, but she didn't cash the checks. So there's no money gone, right? Maybe 50 or 80 grand. But, he's saying, look, if I can just agree to pay that back. I said, no problem. He's like, okay. And so, so here's what's funny about him. He kept coming in like, hey, man, my fucking, my electric, this. How much is it? Of course. Of course.
Yeah.
Here's $1,000. Let's round up. Hey, I'd really like to start like a tree trimming business.
Oh no, I started businesses now.
Of course, I'm like, of course, bro. Of course, he's like, I can get a truck for this much for this. I bought him a truck, got him a Dodge Ram something, got him the truck. Hey, I really need one of those the chipper thing. How much are those? I can get one for about five to 10 grand, or I found one for $8. Here. Of course, $8 grand. I'm embarrassed that you had to ask me. I should have offered. So, I mean, it's just one. I probably gave him over the course of a couple months, 2-3 months, probably 25 grand.
Jesus Christ.
Listen, I'm ready to pay anything. That doesn't include the 15.
Keep it away from you.
Just don't.
Fuck me.
Don't talk about me. Don't mention my name. How would Will Smith put it? You keep my name out your mouth. So yeah.
That was good.
So that, by the way, that's like in prison. That's a common term.
Yeah.
That whole thing. So that was the first time I ever heard it was, tell him to keep my name out his mouth. So, so what happens is one day he's telling me he's deferring the whole thing. He's putting it all off. He's going to be good. He doesn't think he'll have to go to jail. He thinks he's going to be okay. He continually says, like, I told them that I didn't know who that girl was, but I know that there's no way they believe that she took out mortgages. You're taking out mortgages. Like, I know it's all bullshit. Like, I kind of, but I don't, I'm just hoping, that he's not cooperating against me. But what ended up happening was, of course, like that night, like the next morning, he had explained to them, like, look, this isn't even a big fraud. I can give you a massive fraud. Like, I have a daughter. I can give you this massive fraud. It's this guy and a bunch of other people that are working with him. And they were like, well, how can you prove this? He said, I pull up Hillsborough County website, the tax appraiser's website. Okay. Look up the name James Red. Oh, there's 5 houses. Look up the name Lee Black. Okay, there's 5 houses. Boom. Look up the name James, Brandon Green. 5 houses.
I would love to see their faces.
They're like, oh my God. He's like, it's about, at this point, he's like, I don't know, like 11 million, I think he's borrowed, maybe 11 and a half, I don't know. And they're just like, so he's like, it's
in
over
a short period of time,
it's over like $10 million. And they're like, and by the way, you have to understand that, like, James Red, it's like bought them, and then like within 3 to 6 months, foreclosure. So then so it's not like it's like, oh, these are colored names that I'm looking up. No. James Red, foreclosure, like all bought within a month or two of each other, all foreclosed. Lee Black, 5 of them, all foreclosed. This guy, all foreclosed. This guy, all foreclosed. Like, these are just, and these right here are right now, these ones right here, they haven't gone in foreclosure. But when he buys 2 more houses, they'll all go into foreclosure. So they're like, holy shit. So they launched this huge investigation. There's a task force put together between, I want to say Coral Springs, but I don't know the name of the county, but somewhere in Clearwater. I don't know where Coral Springs is, whatever. Somewhere in Clearwater, Hillsborough County, Orlando, whatever the county is in Orlando. Mm-hmm. Those counties, they put together a task force run by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. They come in, they're researching, they're doing everything. They put a whole thing together. They start ordering. And I knew something was wrong because within a week, 2-3 weeks prior to that, I start getting, people are calling me from, like, people that I'd met that liked me are calling me and saying, listen, was told not to say anything, but we were just served search warrants.
Oh, so they're giving you heads up.
Yeah, or not search warrant. I'm sorry, subpoenas. We have to provide all loans that are from this person, but you, like, provide all for James Red, and we know you did the loans for them, and so I know some of those loans closed at your old company, so I just thought I'd mention it. They also wanted us to pull your loans, so I'm thinking maybe they think you're connected to this guy. I don't know, but it seemed weird. Oh, hey, Matt, they just had us pull a bunch of these loans with your loans that you had done in your name, and this guy and this guy and this guy. So I'm realizing, not good. So I know it's kind of coming down. And then I start getting phone calls, or people around me start calling me up saying, hey, bro, I just got a phone call from a guy named Jeff Testerman with the St. Petersburg Times. And that they were bought out by the Tampa. It's now like the Tampa. Now it's like the Tampa Times, I think, or Tampa Tribune, Tampa Times. But it was the St. Pete Times then. They go with the St. Pete Times. And I'm just thinking, oh my God. So he's asking, and I'm like, well, what did he ask? Well, he asked if I ever met this guy named, James Red, Brandon Green, Joel Cologne. Starts naming off all these different people. And I'm like, okay, well, that has nothing to do with me. No. He asked if I knew you, and if I knew that you were currently on probation for wire fraud, which that's what they charged me with. And I was like, it's so bad. Like, my judge is not going to be cool with this. So
your judge is not going to be cool.
So, I just was like, oh my God. And so I'm still kind of not knowing what to do, waiting. And, I'm throwing away some documents, I could tell you that. But I'm kind of waiting. And all of a sudden, one day, it's at like whatever 3 or 4 o'clock. I have a buddy who's he was a sheriff's deputy who we'd done probably $1 million, maybe more, in loans for him. And he comes up to me and he goes, hey, what, Matt? He comes to my office. He goes, Matt, can I talk to you? And I go, yeah, what's up? I walk out there and he's in his outfit, and he goes, yeah, what's up? And he said, listen, I used to date this chick on the Tampa PD. Okay. He goes, so she was on a task force recently. I said, okay. He said, my name came up. And I went, really? And he goes, yeah. He said, because she said it was in association with a property that I guess that you had sold me. That was in your name or your ex-wife's name or whatever. I was like, okay.
Oh.
And I said, he said, well, they just handed over the task force to the FBI yesterday. She came to my house in the morning at like 6 a.m. and told me not to talk to you anymore. And I was like, okay, and I said, why? He goes, because the task force was on you. He said, apparently you know somebody in Orlando, he said, that was arrested and they've been cooperating with this task force. And I thought,
Travis.
Fucking Travis.
Motherfucker.
But once again, he's got a little daughter. He can't go to jail. And I was like, okay. And he said, yeah, so they gave it to the FBI. I'm just letting you know, like, he's like, I don't know what to do. He goes, what are you going to, he goes, and I said, and he said, what do you think I should do? I said, nothing. Just when they come to you and they talk to you, tell them that I did all the loans. Like, you came to me, you filled out the paperwork, and I arranged your loans. Like, you don't know anything. You're not a mortgage broker. How are you supposed to know? He's like, yeah, but I got money back. Like, I'm going to loans, closing on a loan. I said, right, it was a construction loan. You bought the house. You got a check for $40,000 to repair the house. He's like, yeah, but that's not really how it's done. I said, you don't know that, Steve. You're a sheriff's deputy. How the fuck would you know that?
You were covering for your boy.
Right. I was like, just blame it on me. I said, it's fine. You're not a mortgage broker. I'm the one who did the loans. And he goes, okay. Which he was going to do it anyway. And he was like, okay. He goes, what are you going to do? I said, oh, nothing. I'm leaving. I said, I can't go to prison. Look at me.
So immediately you were like, I'm on the run.
Yeah. I mean, look at me, bro. I'm adorable. Can't go to prison.
Had you had any of the plastic surgery yet or anything?
No, I haven't been on the run yet.
Oh, shit. So you did that to change your appearance while you were on the run.
Of course. I mean, I know what you're thinking. It's hard to improve this. But yeah. I mean, at this point, I've got a receding hairline. My nose the surgeon described it as bulbous. I had a little bit of fat. It was a little chubby. My face was thicker. So yeah, when I went on the run, I had a nose job. I had 2 hair grafts, hair transplants, whatever you want. They call them hair grafts, but 2 transplants. I had a nose job. I had what's called a mini facelift. I had liposuction.
And docs didn't ask any questions.
No, why would they don't ask questions?
Yeah, they just want to make the money.
No,
they don't give a shit.
They think I'm trying to improve myself. Everybody's about that.
And did you do it under your real name?
No. I had different surgeries under different names, but they don't know that.
Right.
So
you get off the phone with the sheriff's deputy.
No, he was in person. Like, he didn't talk on the phone. He's stupid. He knows by this point they're probably listening to my phone.
So he leaves, and now you're like, I got to make a run for it.
He leaves, and I have no money. Keep in mind, we have money. We have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars.
All tied up in the...
No, it's in the bank. But do I hang out and try and remove the money, or do I leave? Like, I don't know when. He says they're coming to arrest you. Like, they're going to arrest you soon.
Yeah.
You think about it.
You just had a task force named after you.
Well, yeah, Andy just told me too. He's like, you're on federal probation. Like, they don't really need a reason. They can just come arrest me. They don't need a reason. They don't have to go through a huge process to get a warrant. They can just come say violated. Put them in.
You are as fucked as fuck
right.
gets.
I could, anytime my probation officer shows up, I'm done. Anytime. So I decide this is a Thursday at like 4 o'clock. And
I 04, 03?
Oh, 2003.
Okay.
December 2003. So, and I'm like,
God, this happened over like 4 years.
This went on. Yeah, this went on for a while.
But I'm saying, like, this is how fast. That's fast to get to like this point. All this shit happened. Like, you went from that first whiteout to this.
I've left a ton of stuff out. So, so what ends up happening is, I go and I write a bunch of checks to people and say, go cash this, go cash this, go cash. So I get like 80 grand out in like a day. And I remember I'd been dating this chick for like a month and a half.
And they hadn't frozen any of these accounts?
No.
Damn.
No. And so I go to, they think they have time. Like, they don't think I know any of this. So I go, and as I'm packing my bags, I was supposed to go on a date on Friday night with this chick. And like, I'm not answering her calls, nothing. She just shows up. And she's like, what's going on? And, I've been dating her like 6 weeks. And she says, what's happening? She can see I'm packing. And I've got like cash as a little stack. I got like a little stacks of cash. I mean, I'm
about to get arrested. I'm leaving.
No, I'm not about to go get arrested. I'm about to leave.
I'm avoiding it.
Yeah. So she says, I tell her what I just blatantly this is what happened. And she's like, holy shit. And she's like, oh my God, but I think I'm in love with you. I'm like, I'm like, yeah, I understand, but I'm probably going to do some time.
That's great.
Yeah. And
not now.
Listen, kudos to you. But so she says, well, I'm coming with you, obviously. And by the way, that's Rebecca House.
I was going to say, we're Becky. Finally at the house.
We're at Becky. And I'm like, no, you can't come with me. You have a son. She had just moved here. Like
she had a kid?
Oh, yeah. She had like a 13, I think it was 13 or 14. And I went, you've got a son. And she's like, no, you don't understand. She said, I can't stay here. I want to come with you. She said, you don't understand why I'm even here. And she's like, I haven't told you a bunch of stuff. And I go, what haven't you told me? Like, we
got 5 minutes.
We got to make this quick. So listen, when she came in, the door went beep, beep. And I remember thinking, would they knock? Like, cause I was, I'm in like my bedroom, right? Packing it. And I hear beep, beep. And I thought, would the FBI knock? Like, did they just walk in? And she walked around the corner. I was like, thank God. So she says, you don't understand. She said, she worked at the dog track. She goes,
the dog racing track.
Yeah.
Damn.
So, but she had only been in Florida for like 2 months. I met her on like Match.com. So she'd been here 2 months, met me, boom, chaos.
In love with you.
Totally in love. 6 weeks. So she ends up saying, yeah. So I said, well, what do you mean? She goes, you don't understand. She said, basically, her ex-husband had basically raised her son. And she said, I got my son, I basically, he's got a new wife, new kids, everything. She said, I convinced him to let me bring my son down here. Okay. She said, I came down here because I was working for a lawyer, and that lawyer predominantly did work for the gaming industry in Nevada, in Reno, Nevada. Reno, Nevada?
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Reno, Nevada, I think is how they say it.
No, I'm sorry. In Las Vegas, Nevada. Fuck.
Well, it could have been either, because Reno's a big spot for the gambling as well.
Right. No, I'm thinking, but it was Vegas, because we went to Vegas. So it was in Nevada. So she said in Reno. Sorry, in Vegas. So she said the guy predominantly worked for them. And she said, he sent me down here to work for one of his clients because she had been embezzling money from him to pay for her gambling habits. And he didn't turn her in to the police when he found out, because she was sleeping with him and he was married.
Oh,
she was so
leverage, baby.
Instead, he said, I'm going to give you some money. I'm sending you to work. I talked to my client. He's going to hire you at the dog track down there. You're going down there.
Yeah.
Just to get her out of the hole, to get her away from him. And she owed him a ton of money. She'd claimed bankruptcy a few times. She'd been divorced like 3 times. And
real keeper.
Yeah. And she's like, my son has been picked up twice for breaking curfew in 2 months. He's smoking pot. She said, and she smoked pot all the time. So she's like, I've caught him smoking pot a bunch of times. She said he's failing school. She goes, so actually I was going to send him back to live with his father, at the end of the school year. But she said, he's going back now for Christmas. She goes, I'm just going to stick him on the plane now, and he just needs to go back and live with him now. Anyway, I can't handle him. It's too much. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. We don't know each other. And she's like, it doesn't matter. I think I love you. And and I go, look, this is never going to become love for me. It's just not going to happen. And she goes, I don't care. She said, you need somebody. It's easier with somebody else, right? And I went, I mean, I don't need somebody else, but it's easier if you have somebody else to make phone calls for you or answer phones. You know, it's not always you trying to verify stuff. So yeah, but still, and and she's like, look, I don't care if this doesn't even work out. You can find somebody else. I'll find somebody else. She said, well, we're partners in this. And I was like, and I obviously I should have said no, but at that point I'm leaving everybody behind, and it was bad enough I'm leaving everybody, but I didn't have to be alone. And most people don't realize. Most people basically there are guys that'll get 10 years and turn themselves into the prison. Think about it. They can't even imagine the concept of just leaving, just going somewhere else, starting over. Like, that's foreign. Most people are born and raised in the same town and die in the same, born, raised, and die in the same town. So I was concerned. So I let her come. I said, okay, you can come with me. So we run up my credit cards. We spend a bunch of money, buy as much stuff as we can. I trade in my Audi, get another Audi with a temp tag, and we pack it up and we leave Tampa, and we leave. I wrote a letter to my mother and father telling them that I was leaving and what happened, and then that I was about to be arrested and I was leaving, and I wrote a letter to my ex-wife also, and then I mailed those letters as I left town, and I left town.
See, I think about this a lot because, first of all, I don't think you know how you'd handle a situation like this until you're in it. That goes without saying. But it's like you can so fast be like in survival mode that like I gotta get the fuck out of here. There's no way I'm going to jail. Like you said, like I'm never gonna last in prison or whatever. So I guess I just gotta start over. And yeah, in your case, you've made an expert life out of creating fraudulent identities. So I guess you're like, all right, I'll just invent a new person. But is there any moment, like a sober moment, I don't know if you're like taking a piss or like just staring out on the deck when you get to the first place, where you're like, this is crazy. This is a house of cards that's going to come down at some point. Because again, like you didn't think it was going to come down in the first place, and the reason you're on the run is because it did.
Right. But I mean, just, the problem with the answer is, to me, it's very clear why. And I don't know if it's a full answer, but to me, being somebody who's extremely arrogant, is that the answer is, arrogance. I just didn't think I'd get caught. I just thought I was smarter than them, better than them. I could beat them. And that, going to prison wasn't something I was planning. I was going to do, and I wasn't going to do it. And it just comes down to, it's just arrogance and pride and just, all those things. I mean, looking back on it, like all I could think about was leaving and not having to be. I felt like I would rather leave and have my friends and family have this guy just disappeared. Like they had no idea how much money I left with. In their mind, he left with millions, and that was really the thing. Like he disappeared with tons of money, and like that was like what was going around. Like this guy went to a desert island, like he took off, and I thought that's a great way to leave it. Like he disappeared with all the money, and I'll never be caught because I figured I could get fake IDs. I can get not even fake IDs. I mean, they're just I can go in the DMV and get a driver's license. I mean, I've had like over 25 driver's licenses.
And you're just going to find a way to make money again.
Yeah,
you're confident.
Right. I'm going to go out, steal a bunch of money, and I'm going to start a business and maybe start buying rental properties, and I'll live the rest of my life. If I get $3 or $4 million and then leverage that money, I can buy $10 million in rental properties, and I can just live off of collecting rent for the rest of my life. You thought that was going to be enough? I still thought I was still, it was just naive. It was just, I don't want to say stupid because, I just thought I could start over somewhere else.
What'd you think about like leaving your kid behind?
I mean, yeah, that was, the thing is like during our divorce, right? Like his mom had said a bunch of, really like nasty things. You're getting divorced, And so people, it's the worst comes out of people, right? But I'm never been one of those people that gets into a fight with somebody and says horrible things or threatens them or whatever. But she had been like it didn't matter that I was taking this charge. Didn't matter that she wasn't getting charged. That was part. I made sure she wasn't getting charged. And we're in the middle of like a divorce. Mm-hmm. And and her during the divorce, some of the things that she had said was basically like, you're going to end up in prison, and I'm never going to bring your son to come see you, and I'll never drag my son down to some prison to see, and she was being mean and nasty. And so my justification for leaving him was that I'm going to end up in prison.
And I won't get this, I'll be out of his life anyway.
Yeah, she's never going to bring him to see me. And especially when the child support payments stop coming in, So like this kid's gone. It's over. Like, so for me to go to prison and be on the prison phone begging her to bring my son and she won't do it, like that's ridiculous.
And you didn't, because things are happening so fast at this point, it's not like you've had any time to sit there and live in that. Understand that.
No. And here's
grasp the gravity of it.
Like Becky put her son on a plane. Like Becky.
Yeah, I wasn't even, yeah.
Yeah. She put her son on a plane and, going back to see the father.
And she didn't have, that's the thing though. She didn't have to.
No. And
you were in a position, as you just laid out,
that
where
I felt I had to. I didn't have to, but I felt I did.
You legitimately felt like you had to.
Right. I justified it to myself, I mean, the truth is, that the whole decision was just selfish and stupid. And it's funny because it's like most people, when they're in that situation or in a situation, like they always think they know what they're going to do, Like, I'm not going to tell on anybody. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, well, yeah, me and my buddies are doing this and this and this, but I'm not going to say anything because of this and because I'm not that kind of guy. I'm not this. They have this illusion.
Until you are.
This delusion. Then they get caught, and they're sitting in a room with their 2 kids and their wife, and she's crying and begging and saying, how are we going to survive while you do 10 years? And you're going, and you're doing this because your friend, you don't want to tell on your friend Tom, mm-hmm. who you've known 2 years. I mean, like, you know what I'm saying? Like she, it just doesn't make sense because guess what? The moment they talk to Tom, he's going to roll on you. And even if Tom doesn't, Tom's not like the whole Omerta thing. Like Tom's supposed to help take care of your wife. Mm-hmm. He's supposed to send you money. He's supposed to take care of your family. Tom's not going to do that. No. So your justification is based on just strictly pride. So the point is I, until, it always makes me think. Did you ever see the movie Alive?
Who's in it?
Oh God, I forget his name. But it was about the soccer team that gets caught in the they crash land in like the Alps or something.
No, I haven't seen that.
So they crash land, and they're starving, and it takes them weeks before finally somebody says, like, we're going to starve to death here, and it's snowing. We don't have the strength to get out. We're dying. We're starving. I'm going to eat one of the pilots, like the dead people that are dead that died in the crash. Like, we're going to start eating.
This is
them.
a true story.
Oh, absolutely. So it takes them weeks and weeks before they come to the conclusion we're going to start eating the bodies, and we're going to eat the bodies and get our strength up and try and hike out of here. People start dying, and some of these guys, 1 or 2 guys, just die. They won't do it. They just starve to death. But very quickly, almost everybody eats. Now, here's the thing. The one thing I know about myself is that the moment that my stomach starts rumbling, I'm eating that fucking pilot. I'm a survivor. And I'm going to survive no matter what. So if it's between you and me, you're done. I'm cutting your head clean fucking off your body. If I get the chance. That's just the way it is. I can tell myself I wouldn't do that. I don't go, fuck. I'm not going down for you. If it's you or me, if I'm getting 30 years and I can spread that around, I'm spreading it around. And that's just the way it is. And, here's the thing. Obviously I have regrets, but I had to try. Like, I don't mind
once
failing.
You were there.
I was in a situation I had to try. Like, I don't mind failing. I mind not trying. And I had to try because what I didn't want to do was get arrested, go to prison, get out with nothing a few years later. And, everybody's given up on me and I'm starting over with nothing. And I thought, I would rather try and make the getaway and do a little bit more time. Like, I'm not realizing how much time I'm facing, by the way. I have no idea how much time. I don't, but
You never called a lawyer or anything?
No, I did call a lawyer. I actually did call my lawyer. He's telling me cooperate against everybody. And I think he said you're probably still going to end up with 5 or 10 years. You probably end up with 5 or 10 years. And I'm just thinking I'm not doing 5 or 10 years and cooperating. I'm still thinking don't cooperate on anybody. I didn't have the same mindset then. Like, I'm still thinking I'm not cooperating. Not realizing what a foolish decision that is. Thinking I'm a gangster. I'm as soft as fucking cotton. So the idea that I'm a gangster and I'm going to go to fucking prison and none of these people were going to support me or my son or come see me or do anything. None of them, they weren't worth, holding my tongue. So I end up, Becky, I go through it quick. I actually got everybody together and we had dinner. We had dinner. I actually got and told everybody the FBI is coming to arrest me. I'm leaving.
I mean, where'd you do the dinner? Olive Garden? like, where are you doing this?
God, I want to know. Where did I do it? I don't know. Becky was even there. Like, I remember Rudy, one of the guys had stopped me in the bathroom, was like, this chick going with you? Like, you don't even know this chick. And I'm like, I told him, I said, well,
it's my Bonnie.
I said, listen, bro. Yeah, that's how she ended up being. I said, listen, bro. He's like, I can't believe that. I said, listen, bro. I said, this chick is a thieving adulteress who's claimed bankruptcy multiple times. I'm like,
she's perfect.
Yeah, she's embezzled money. She's sleeping with married guys. She's a thief. I'm like, these are
first round
great attributes. At this point, she's a gangster. I'm ready for her to come. I'm like, look, I didn't want, when I thought she was this cute little secretary, it's like, you can't, absolutely not. But the more she talked about who she was, I was like, oh, actually, you're going to fit into the plan perfect. So I'm like, no, she's good. I'm good with her. She's going to be fine. And he's like, Jesus, bro, you're really going to leave? I said, yeah. He said, oh, I'm staying. I'm going to fight. I was like, you're going to fight. You're 100% guilty. And you're going to stay here and fight. I said, yeah, I'm not going to do it, bro. So we pack all our stuff, get in the Audi and we got some money and we've got computers.
Did you change the plates?
No, I have a temp tag. I traded my Audi in. I had an Audi Quattro, TT Quattro. We traded in on like an Audi A8, I think. And it's like the 4-door one. It's got like 390 or 400 horsepower. Something it's like ridiculous. And it's like $100,000 back then. I don't know what they are now. So we pack it full of stuff, run up all my credit cards, and get as much stuff as we needed or as we could get in the car, and we leave. We just drive out of I mail a couple letters off. I mail those letters off, I told you, and we leave. And that was, it's funny too. I should have known she was crazy. Cause we got into a huge fight. As soon we hadn't even left Tampa yet, we got into a fucking huge screaming match where she was screaming and turned red. No. And I was like, I even turned around. I even remember getting off the interstate, turning around and started to head back. She immediately went into crying, begging, pleading. I'm sorry. I'm just freaking out. I did it. Please, don't drop me off. Please. And I turn around and keep going and go back.
And did you know where you were going? Like where the first stop was?
Yeah, I kind of assumed Atlanta, Georgia.
And why was that?
I have no idea.
You just landed on Atlanta.
I just figured Atlanta. I don't know. I kind of figured it was. I don't know. I just figured I'd go there. We'd go there and regroup.
Did you already have the whole plastic surgery thing in your head? Like you were going to do that?
Yeah, I kind of figured eventually that I would do that. But
you needed money first.
Well, we had 80 grand.
Yeah, you had some. You get a lot for 80 grand. But there's other things too. You got to get a place to live. You got to figure out your next moves.
Yeah. No, I need money. I mean, I knew as soon as I left, I knew I was committing fraud. I knew I was going to go and steal, a few $1 million at the minimum and trying to start over.
Did you want to do it the same way?
No, well, yeah, I altered the scam. Like the other scam was meant to be kind of like non-detectable, and it basically or indetectable, whatever, undetectable.
We'll go with it. Yeah.
So yeah, but now that the handcuffs are off, the restraints are off. So now it's like, okay, well now I don't care if they figure out the scam. So I'm not going to do the same thing now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to be blatant about it. I'm going to straight just refinance like the same house like 5-6 times in a row and just pull out like $1 million or whatever it is,
And then just change the identity again.
Yeah, change the identity again and go somewhere else. Do it again until I have enough money that I feel like, okay, I'm good.
Wow.
So, that was my plan. And of course I need a driver's license issued by the DMV. I can't make fake people anymore. Like I can't get a ticket. That's the problem, is that like I can't drive around the rest of my life thinking I won't get pulled over and have my, and have to provide my license to somebody. Like that's always the idiot who thinks, oh, I'm going to start over. And like, yeah, but what if you get caught by the cops speeding or something? Oh, well, I just won't speed. What if you get into an accident? I'm just going to have to be real careful. All right, you're an idiot. Why don't you just go to jail? Like you're just putting off the inevitable. Yeah. Like I'm not that guy. I can get I can get passports. I can get driver's licenses and not fake passports. Like I can get a real passport issued to me from the State Department. I can go into the local DMV and get
How do you get that?
What, a passport?
Yeah.
Well, you start with an ID. You got to get a real person. Well, you don't really, because I've actually made synthetic identities and gotten IDs in their name. So I immediately go to Atlanta, and then we go to Alabama, and I get a driver's licenses. Like Becky and I both get driver's licenses like in Alabama.
And how did you do that?
Well, I already had somebody's information. Like I had an account executive named Scott Cugno, who when the subpoenas started showing up, he had come in one day. We were doing his loan. He had bad credit and fucked up. So he came in one day and we had an application on him, but I was only missing a few things that I would need to steal his identity. And so I just kind of said, Cugno, I was like, I go, what is that? Is that English? Or he goes, no, it's actually Irish. I said, oh, are your parents from Ireland? My parents were here and here. My dad this, my dad that. I said, oh, were you born here? And I said, where were you born? I said, here. And he's like, yeah, I was born in Hillsborough County. I said, and is it your dad or your mom? Oh, it's my dad. I go, oh, what's your dad's? I said, oh, okay. So Cugno's from, yeah. I said, what's your mom? What is she? He's like, oh, her name is, like, what's her, maiden name? Oh, it's this. Oh, okay. And I said, well, what? So now I know what county you're born in. I know your mother's maiden name. I already know his date of birth. I know his social security number, and I know his full name.
And at this point, 03, 04, 05, you can do some damage on the internet too with this.
Well, no, I can't. But what I can do is I can order your birth certificate with that information. I can get your social security with that information. I can register to vote with that information. I can get your
by knowing the names and stuff.
I know his name, his social security number, his date of birth, his mother's maiden name, and where he was born. I can order his birth certificate. I know where he was born, and I know his mother's maiden name. You can do that now. I can get yours. I can get his social security number. I can do it now. Like, wow. I can order it because when I order the social security form, you fill out the SS5. Is it SS4? SS5. When you fill out the application, and one of the things it asks you for is a copy of, like, let's say, they want you to send either your driver's license, or if you want your original, they want an original driver's license, passport, military ID, your school ID, or your employer ID. How hard is it to make an employer ID? A piece of laminate and piece of paper and a photo. Doesn't even have to be you. It could be anybody. So I would take a photo of just somebody, and I would put it on there, and I would. Oh man, I never even told you about this one thing that happened.
Let's hear it.
No. I mean, this is back before I left. This was when I actually had to have a guy go into a bank or go into a closing as James Red. Bro, that was hilarious. So
you made an ID for him.
I made an ID for him.
James Red.
For James Red.
Hilarious.
So what you do for the driver's license. So then I can make employer ID, I mail it with the application for your Social Security number, which is completely filled out because I have all the information. I mail it to the Social Security. They have an original. They get the original a document, which is your employer ID, and they mail it back because that's one of the 5 things that they're willing to accept an original of. So you mail them your ID. They mail it back. Then I just need a copy of a driver's license to get your birth certificate. So I make a copy of this person's with their date of birth, their full name, which matches your birth certificate, and you pay the $20 fee for a certified copy. They mail it to you. Now I've got your social. Now I've got this. I go online. I can register to vote as you, or I can order your high school transcripts. Because how hard is it for you to tell me what your where'd you go to high school? Oh, I went to such and such. Oh, okay. People just answer. They just give you the information. Especially Scott. He knew me.
I think when people are answering any question that isn't what is your social security number, which you actually were in a job where you asked that. I already
had it.
Right.
But I already had it.
But any other question, people are like, oh, there's nothing they can do with that.
Yeah.
Like that's the thought.
Well, but first of all, people don't think fraud. No. Listen, so the thing is, remember James Redd?
Yeah.
So James Redd, when he was buying properties or refinancing the properties, he bought like 5 of them. So this one woman named Mary at, I think it was like Paradise Title or Island Title, somebody had told her something was wrong. So she actually calls the broker and says, listen, because what I'd been doing to do the closings was I would just show up at the title company and say, hey, my client, Lee Black, he's at work right now. He's in a meeting. He can't make it. Can I just bring him the package, have him sign it, and bring it back? And we closed so many loans. They go, sure, Mr. Cox, no problem. Hey, make sure you get a copy of his driver's license. No problem. So I'd make a copy of a driver's license, and then I'd make a copy, put it on there, sign his name, bring it back. Hey, here it is. They'd look, they go, okay, boom, they'd notarize everything. Bam, bam, bam. They trust me. They see I have his driver's license. And then they hand me the checks. I deposit the checks into various accounts because the checks, keep in mind, the checks are refis. So I say, hey, by the way, I give them a list of what checks to make to who. He owes this company this much, this construction company this much, this person this much, this person, and he needs a check for this. I deposit. He's got a bank account. So I opened a bank account in his name. So I deposit that. All of them clear. The money's good. So one time she figured out something's wrong. She'd done a couple of loans. So remember I told you how somebody cleaned all the properties for us?
Yes.
Okay. That guy's name was Eric Tamargo.
And doing the outside, the lawn.
He trimmed the trees and did took garbage away, and then he trimmed the trees and stuff. And I knew he had been married to one of the account executives for Citibank. So what ends up happening is, I see him every once in a while. So one of the things I would do is when I would make the IDs, I'd put a picture of somebody I knew as the person, only because one, it's never going to catch up with them. They didn't really show up, and 2, I thought, if I know the person, maybe if I ever need them to do something, I can go to them. And so some of them were people that I knew had criminal records that were renting from me, or this person here that I knew was kind of sleazy.
That you had something on them in a way.
Well, that I knew they would be susceptible to money, and they needed money. So Eric Tamargo had been arrested several times on drug charges and domestic violence. And one of the things I was doing was, the other thing was, the reason I would recognize you is I know who you are, and I can get your picture because you've been arrested, and it's on the Hillsborough County website, arrest website. So I'd gotten his picture and used it, and he was James Redd. So his picture was on the James Redd driver's license. So this chick, Mary, calls up and says, hey, this guy's got to show up next time. Something's wrong. I've never seen this guy. I've got a bunch of loans here that I've never seen these people. I've been notarizing things. I need him to show up. And she called. So the broker comes over. Her name's Kelly. She's like, yeah, she knows something's up. She knows something up. She goes, so I'm going to switch title companies. We'll go with these guys. They'll let us pick up the thing or the file and close it, just like Mary was. I go, nah. I said, She said, or you'll have to make an ID and you go in. I was like, I don't want to do that. I said, I'm just going to get somebody to do it. I said, I'll have somebody show up. And she said, you sure? I said, yeah. So I call Eric and I go, Eric, can you come over? Sure. He comes to the office. We go in the conference room and I say, Eric, all these properties you're cleaning? Yeah. Why, is everything okay? Yeah, everything's fine. So here's what I've been doing. I start explaining what I've been doing. He's like, then I refinance them and this and this. He goes, holy shit. That's brilliant. I said, yeah. I said, it is brilliant. I said, but here's the problem, Eric. This woman's called and she needs somebody to show up. She needs somebody to show up and sign.
Are you going to step up?
And he goes, no. He said, whoa, no, bro, I can't do that. I said, why? He said, because you said you've been using like scumbags that have been arrested photos. I said, that I have been. I said, and for James Red, I said, I used your scumbag photo from when you beat up your wife a couple of years ago. Remember that? When you slapped Amy around? You remember that? He's like, he jumps up. He goes, you motherfucker. And I go, oh, calm down, Eric. I said, listen, the only reason I used it, the only reason I used your ID or your picture was because I knew if it came to this point, you were the only person I knew that had the balls to pull this off.
Oh, you turned it on him.
And you know what he did? He went,
fuck yeah, I do.
You're right. You're right. And I'm like, that didn't just work. So he says
play to the pride. Yeah. Play to the pride.
Oh my God, right. So he looks at me and he says, he goes, I'm not doing this for nothing, bro. And I went, no, I understand. And he goes, you're making a lot of money. I said, well, keep in mind, Eric, a lot of that money is going right back into the Totes properties. Like you're charging us to clean the trees and trim the trees and mow the yards every week and all that garbage. Like a lot of that money goes right back in there. He's like, yeah, still. And I went, he was like, I could get a lot of trouble. I said, I know, bro. Well,
we'll work something out.
Yeah. What's it? How much? Like I hate to be the guy that always says something first. So I'm like, how much? And he goes, I'm gonna want $500. You do know he's seen me tell this story before. Like he's watched it before.
No.
So and I went
$500.
Oh, it's worse. It gets worse. So I have him go get. I take his ID, his real ID. I change it to be a fake ID to match close to. I actually turn it into like a driver's license. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't. It's a different picture, slightly different picture, but it's still him.
Yeah.
Same information, everything. So I make it, and the day of the closing, we go in there. I have him practice the signature and everything, which is a joke. So we go in there. We're sitting in the lobby, and Mary comes walking out, and she goes, Mr. Cox, I don't know why you're here. She goes, I specifically told Kelly if if James Red doesn't show up, she said, I'm not closing the loan. And Eric stands up and he goes, I'm James Red. And she goes, and she goes, hold on a second. She goes back, grabs the file, comes back, pulls out the photo she has of his driver's license, which I knew she would. And she goes,
holy shit.
I'm sorry, Mr. Red. You could tell in her mind, she's like, I thought he didn't exist. Like I was told, so-and-so told me, like somebody told me to stop doing the loans. There's, somebody that knew her or something that had heard it, had gotten around. Like she's like, I'm sorry, Mr. Red. Yeah, come on in. Do you want something to drink? And so he goes in, they sit down. She hadn't really printed anything up. She hadn't done shit. Takes like 20 minutes, 30 minutes. She finally gets everything together. She comes back. He signs. Perfect. Do you have your driver's license? Right here. Boom. She makes a copy. She's like, damn. Makes a copy. Everything great. Hands a bunch of checks, and I take the checks. He sees the check. She's like, well, what do I do with this? The construction check. I said, oh no, I got that. I got that. I got that.
We'll take care of that for you.
Take that. He's watching the checks, and I mean, there must have been $80,000.
And he's sitting there going, I'm getting paid $500 for this shit.
So, I mean, it's $20,000, $17,000, $5,000, $27,000. Like, there's all these little tiny checks, going all over the place. So, we get back, we get in the car, sit down, and I count out $500. It's like, oh, no, bro. There's a lot
Price
of
went
up. Checks. A lot of checks. I said, no. I said, bro, you said a lot of. I go, Eric, a lot of that money's going back. We're doing new construction. We're doing this. Like, come on, bro. It's just what you said, $500. And he's like, yeah, all right. So, a week later, I call him up, and I go, well, I asked him to come in the office, and he comes in the office. I said, hey, listen, we got another loan.
1,000 this time.
That's exactly what he said. He said, I ain't doing it for $500. I seen all them checks. I said, a lot of that money goes back in the properties. And he goes, no. He said, I said, well, how much? He goes, and you know what I was thinking in my mind?
I was going to say like
I was thinking,
grand.
if he says more than like $15,000, I'll just do it myself. Like, I'm willing to pay up to 10 to 15. Like, I'll just do it myself if he asks for more than that. I'm willing to pay $10,000, $15,000 for every closing.
But you would have to change everything, though, to do it yourself.
Well, we'd have to go to another title company, and I'd have to make an ID with but it'd be my picture.
Right.
You know?
So you could pull it off.
Huh?
You could pull it off.
I could pull it off. Like,
it's a lot of
like
work.
I don't know every title company in Tampa, but
Right.
you know, they don't know me, but I don't want my picture on a fucking thing. You know, I just didn't want it on there.
But this guy says $1,000.
He looks at me and he goes, yeah, someone's a lot. I could get in a lot of trouble for this. I get in a lot of trouble. I said, I know. Okay, he goes, yeah, I want $1,000. And I mean, I literally was just like,
It's really expensive.
are you serious? $1,000? Bro, it's 5 minutes. It's 5 minutes. And he's like, no, but I mean, I literally argued with him. Like,
Fuck you. I'll never forget this.
And I'm ready to give you 10 grand in cash right now. And I'm arguing. So he's like, no. And he holds firm. And I'm like, damn, bro. Like, oh, you got to do it first. No, yeah, I'll sign first. I know that. I'll sign first. And then you're good for it. I know you're good for it. I'm like, clearly I'm good for it. You're about to sign something to make me 90 grand. Of course I'm good for the $1,000. But yeah, so that was just one of the, listen, bro, I got like stupid shit like that all the time.
And so you started doing this on the road now without people's permission, just same concept, just hoping you'd never have to send them in there.
Yeah, this time we go to Atlanta and we get, like, I order all of Scott Cugnow's real documents in, and then
he had a criminal record, right?
No,
He didn't. He was the account. He was the executive. And he had nothing on him.
No.
So where'd you get his picture?
I don't need his picture because I went into the DMV.
You were right.
I'm now on the run now.
Yeah,
you can see
who
my
the fuck
picture.
cares?
I go to Alabama. I go into the DMV. Here's my here's my birth certificate. Here's my social security card. Here's my lease agreement. I make a fake lease agreement because you have to live in that town. So, but the lease agreement went to a UPS box. So here's my lease agreement. Here's my here's my credit card for, let's say, like you get a credit card, a statement. Like, here's my credit card statement. Is that, oh, we can't use that. Okay, what about I'm giving them stuff that, like, I have a ton of I'll order a ton of documents that have that name on it, and I'm giving it to them, even though I know they can't use it. Here's my bank statement. They're like, oh no, I can't use that. Okay. Well, no. This is all. Oh no, I need it. Wait, do you have this? I go, well, I got my. Do you have a voter's registration? No. So then I start ordering voter's registration. But for that one, I had a lease agreement, and I go, no, and I go, I just moved here. Like, do you have your lease agreement? Oh no, I have my lease agreement. Oh, that's all we need. That's fine. Oh, okay, thanks. Yeah, I'm always. Oh gosh, thank God. So yeah, I give it to them. They go, okay, well, sit over there. We'll call your name in a minute. And they call my name, and I go up and they look at the documents. They go, okay, and they say, yeah, stand over there. No, it's this much money. Stand at the red line, and they, so they're like, stop that. No, so we take a picture, and I walk out and. I remember, you know what's so funny about it? I remember the first time Becky got a driver's license in somebody else's name. I remember we walked out, and you know what she kept doing? I understood what she was saying. She's looking at it, she goes, God, this looks so real. And I go, it is real. Like, it's from no, but I mean, it really looks like, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, it's real. She's like, I know, but it's like it looks like it's genuine, like it's a real. I go, it is a real
we were
ID.
Just in a DM fucking V.
Because you know what I mean, and I kind of do. It's surreal. What she really means is this is surreal. Yeah. I have a fucking
someone else.
This isn't.
I just became a new person.
It's my picture with somebody else. It's like I can go up to a cop. He can run this. This is me. My picture's going to show up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like the way we got first we started to get the IDs. We started I just ran ads. Like, I ran ads in the newspaper in like Tampa and Miami and
even back in Tampa.
Yeah, well, the ads were, good credit, bad credit, good credit, bad credit, no problem. Free applications, home loans available.
Oh my
Call
God.
now, free applications, and then people would call, and then I take their information. I take all their information. They give you all kinds of stuff, and I just ask them. Like, in the very back, there's a series of questions on an application, a mortgage application or loan application, and it's like, what's this? Have you ever had a house foreclosed on? You ever been defaulted on a government loan? You currently owe back taxes? Have you ever claimed bankruptcy? Have you? So you start, and just as I would go down the list, I would say, what. Have you ever are you a U.S. citizen? Were you born in the United States? Have you ever had a U.S. passport?
Getting everything.
Have you ever had a U.S. passport? What county were you born in? What's your mother's maiden name? And, and what, I mean, it's like I get to down towards the end and I'm like, it's just not going to answer this. And they just, but they've been answering questions for 3 pages.
Yeah.
Like, they just give it all up and you go, okay, thank you. I've got everything I need from you. I mean.
And so now you're just getting people left and right.
Right.
And you have all these potential identities to use.
Right. And so one of the things I did was I got information for her. And so I have her information for her, so she can now go in and she can get a driver's license. So now we can go get a house, and we get a house. And I'm not afraid to borrow heavily, as the owner of the house.
And you're off to the races.
Yeah.
So I kind of knew this after I booked you, and I was thinking about this a couple days ago because I spent some time with Danny a couple weeks back, and we were talking about it. I was pretty sure we weren't going to fit this in a podcast. So if I had booked this later, I would have done it where we had like a full day and we could do the full 2-parter. But we've been talking it's been over 3 hours. So I know we'll probably cut it here. What I would like to be able to get to with you, and I'll have to have you back, is run through now the full like second half of your story, which is how you got caught, going to prison, everything that happened there, because you hinted at this early, but your trajectory of when you started to have the self-realization later as to what you had done and, the arrogance that goes with that and how you psychologically got out of control. To me, when we talked about that on the phone and when you hinted at it even a little bit today, it's so, so interesting because it's almost like you have to get kicked in the balls sometimes in life, and the hardest way to figure out like, oh, here were the error in my ways, here's why. But I appreciate the fact that after doing all this and the thrill of it and all the things that came with it, all the good shit, like you're able to look back and be like, oh no, this was so fucked up, and yeah, I was guilty of all that, and here's exactly why. So I think people really appreciate that transparency, and I thought this was a really good first sit down. And if you want to know how to be a fraud, listen to this episode today. Holy shit.
Listen, it's just, look, being on the run, I've been handcuffed in banks, I've talked my way out of banks, I've talked to I'll go over all. You won't believe. It's shocking.
We're going to talk about that next time. And also, like you ended up becoming a writer in prison. There's a whole bunch there. You wrote stories.
I've optioned several stories.
Yeah, you wrote for the War Dogs guy.
Yeah,
from Dorey.
Got some documentaries coming out based on that are the stories I wrote in prison. They're turning them into documentaries, 3-part series. Like I got a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, you have you've really turned this around in some positive ways, which is pretty cool.
It seems that way, doesn't it? It always sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, man. Thank you for running through this today. I'm going to listen to like this a couple times just because there were so many details. Like this was very intricate. But we'll have you back down here. I'll figure out when we're going to do that. But good spot to leave it for now.
All right.
Cool. Thanks, Matt.
Sure.
Everyone else, you know what it is. Give it a thought. Get back to me.